Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakel niyeh b'dvoreh. L'chaim, l'chaim. Good Yontif. For those of us that are on the clock of 770, it is already Erev Chof Ches Sivan, the date, as the Rebbe wrote into the Kevitz Chof Ches Sivan, and the time to Farbrengen, to gather together, has begun. Today is Chof Ches Sivan, and to quote the Mugdi Kesicha, Shekvar Nikva al Yedei Rabbi Yisrael Liyem Misvados. It's already been established by many as a day of farbrengens, the Kabbalah hachlatos tevis, the Chol Hapaulis, the Hafatzas Hatera, Va'yadus, Va'mayonis Chutza, in all areas of spreading Torah and Yiddishkeit and spreading the wellsprings into the Chutza. Ukvaro Atetzois Meis Va'aduyus Eila, and the outcomes have already been seen. B'maisa b'peil, b'meshech yeser megimel shnei chazaka, from over more than 3 years of chazaka. This is in Tavshim Mem Tes. The Rebbe was referring to the 3 years that Chof Ches Sivan had already been celebrated by Chassidim at that point. So we are celebrating tonight, we're bringing tonight together the Hatzalah, the rescue, the fact that the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, the Yishubesei, arrived to the shores of America safely, having been saved from Nazi-torn Europe and the trials and tribulations, the suffering and the Mesidus Nefesh for over 1.5 years, and before that as well, and arrived here to America safely. Together with that, as the Rebbe says, it began a tnufa chadasha, a new momentum in the area of bringing Yiddishkeit, of the area of bringing Elokos and Torah into Chatzi Kader Atachten, into the lower hemisphere, as certainly we will discuss and we will farbrengen in the course of the night. It also is tonight, we're also marking Yomim Hasmuchim to Gimmel Tammuz. It's just 1 week until the Yema Ilula of Gimmel Tammuz. And when we gather together to farbrengen, it is also an opportunity for hachana, to prepare ourselves for this Yema Ilula. Especially as the Rebbe explains the connection between Chof Ches Sivan and the Chodesh Tammuz. That Chodesh Tammuz is a time of the Avodas Hamata. This is when the Dira B'Tachtenim is done through the Mata, through the person below. Whereas Chodesh Sivan, which is the Chodesh of Matan Torah, is the Avodah Milamayla Lamata, the things that come from above. And the Koyach of this Chodesh is in Chof Ches Sivan. So certainly tonight, the night of Chof Ches Sivan, gives us the Koyach to prepare ourselves for Gimmel Tammuz. Of course, it is our hope and our prayer. It is our emunah and bitachon gomer that by the time it comes Gimmel Tammuz, we will be together with the Rebbe in Yerushalayim, Mirakedesh, and Beis Chayenu. But of course, it behooves us to utilize these times to prepare us, these days to prepare ourselves via darf zu sein for a chassid of the Rebbe. So tonight is a night that celebrates Chof Ches Sivan. It's a night of hachana for Gimmel Tammuz, and the two are not mutually exclusive. And so we gather together. We ask everyone to say l'chaim together. We'll pick up a kais. We'll say l'chaim v'levracha. L'chaim to the efforts of the Dira B'Tachtenim that began on Chof Ches Sivan, and that we, each and every one of us, have this chus to be part of it in the final moments of Galus, to bring the Shechina Lamata Ba'aretz, and that the Tnufa Chadasha that began, that we should be able to see its culmination with Bias Mashiach Tzidkenu, with the Rebbe zusammen, L'chaim, L'chaim. We begin tonight's farbrengen with Peschin B'dvar Malchus, the video of the Rebbe. This video is from Tes Adar Tavshin Nun. Tes Adar Tavshin Nun was 50 years from when the Frierdiker Rebbe arrived to America and began the Tnufa Chadasha, or at least the hachana to the Tnufa Chadasha that came to Chof Ches Sivan, came with Chof Ches Sivan. And the Sikha is actually printed in the Kevitz Chof Ches Sivan, which the Rebbe gave out in Tavshin Nun Aleph, 50 years after he after the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin arrived to America, and there was it was a Tuesday night. So Mamele was during the week, and there's a video of it. So we will now take a few minutes to begin the Farbrengen with seeing the Rebbe and hearing from the Rebbe some words on bringing over the Americas, the center of Chassidus Chabad, into Chatzi Kader Atachdin, into the lower hemisphere.
B'shem kol
Even though we're in Chatzi Kader Atachten, in a place of technology, v'chulu v'chulu, Amal, there has to be a glitch. So committed that there's a glitch. Also, I noticed that it came up onto the screen that the video is not from the video is not from Tes Adar Tavshanun. It's a different video. It seems like it's going to be the bracha that Anash, that Reb Zalman Gourarie gave to the Rebbe b'shem Anash, and the Rebbe's response to the bracha. This was the evening of Chof Ches Sivan Tavshanun Aleph.
B'shem kol na Chassidim v'atmimim gute Freund, bnei ubnei Yisrael v'chol asar v'asar, seien sich alle bestattet von der Broche mit Schlichosayu Kardinen, Menschen, dem Rebben, sein gesund, Poshet und Geruchtis und Gashmis und soll kommen, bringe Babisch, Beschiach, Lebate, Dau.
Wir verbinden sich allemal mit dem Tag, in welcher eine gute Sache passiert. Bis wann jetzt hat der ganze Tag wird angerufen, jedem Sackheit.
Vom Askirus von Rabbi soll gesund sein, hat mir gebeten, übergeben, als so wie die Konterreisen wollen bald umkommen, wird jetzt doch sein, ein Hefzig von Leerach, ein Viertelschau, und nachdem wird der Rebbe soll gesund sein, geben jeden einen bei jeder Akteus dem Konterreis mit dem Geld auf Zdocken.
Liv, gesinnt mir sich in dem Kehr von Jalchit Plisoye, Jem von Essen und Schmeiner Bey, bis die Gejula betascht ist, weil der Pschat ist auf Mirachit Palstoff, zusammen mit Schutzischer Mikro, und dort der Jiddisch Mercedes-Abteilung.
it's well known that for many years it wasn't known what was the exact date of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzins' arrival to the shores of America. In the Yuds, in the 1950s, it was printed in Hayom Yom that in Sivan of Tavshin Aleph, the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin arrived to America. But it wasn't until the Friedrich Rebbe's Igris Kodesh was printed in Tavshin Mem Gimmel, which has a letter that the Rebbe sent, the Friedrich Rebbe sent to David Moshe Rabinowitz, the father of the lawyer Reb Asher Rabinowitz, and it's dated Chof Ches Sivan, and the Friedrich Rebbe says in that letter that today the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin arrived to America. And it was only a year or two later that the Bachrim and the Jungelite began to make a big deal out of Chof Ches Sivan. And in the year Tavshin Mem Vav, the Bachrim decided to make a big Farbrengen and a Tshura, and they asked the Meir Harlik to go up and get mashke from the Rebbe. And at first he wasn't sure if he was going to do it or not. But the first sicha of the Farbrengen of Shabbos Shelach Tavshin Mem Vav was all about the fact that it's Shabbos Mevarchim Tammuz, which is the Chedesh HaGeula of the Friedrich Rebbe, and the Uftu of Yud Beis Tammuz is that ultimately the Rebbe came to America, and the Rebbe was Meirich. The Rebbe elaborated on the Uftu of bringing the Friedrich Rebbe and Chassidus Chabad to America. And the Meir understood that this was something that the Rebbe was accepting and happy that the Chassidim were talking about it and Farbrengen about it. But nevertheless, the Rebbe himself did not formally or officially address and acknowledge this at a Farbrengen until the Farbrengen of Shabbos Shelach Tavshin Mem Tes, where the Rebbe referred to it as it's been 3 years, which is a chazaka, that Chassidim have been making Farbrengens for Chof Ches Sivan, and the Rebbe went on to Farbreng all about the day of Chof Ches Sivan, and sort of lay out for us, for the generations to come, for the years to come, what is Chof Ches Sivan, my Chof Ches Sivan. And for this, we're going to ask Rabbi Shlomo Kaplan, Rosh Hashiva and Alatera, to chazer over for us, to share for us some nekudas from the Farbrengen of Shlach Tavshin Mem Tes, and Farbrengen with us about the significance of the day of Chof Ches Sivan. L'chaim, Rabbi Kaplan.
L'chaim, l'chaim. Okay, just over a little some nekudas bekitzer from the Sikha. The parsha starts with Shlach L'cha, that the Eibusha tells Moshe, that he should send the meraglim. Shlach L'cha, Anoshim Yisuras Eretz Canaan. So the shaila is Rashi Shtotzach, what's the pshat L'cha? What does it mean Moshe Rabbeinu should send for him? So Rashi says Shlach L'cha means there's L'daitcha, not that the Eibusha gave a tzibah. The Eibusha didn't command to send meraglim. But if Moshe Rabbeinu, if your opinion is that it's kedai to send meraglim, so do as according to the way you understand L'daitcha. But so here's already a shaila. I mean, what was the Eibusha's das Kaviyachol? What did the Eibusha want? What was the Eibusha's opinion? It's not the pshat. Sending meraglim is an insignificant thing. The Eibusha is saying that to me is not negay exactly this way or that. Where you make your own decision. It's always the first thing that by all other tzivuyin, any hanhaga v'yid is based on what was will the Eibusha. What's the Eibusha's ratzon? What's the Eibusha? What does the Eibusha say? Whether it's correct. And here the Eibusha tells him, I'm not telling you what to do. Do according to the way you understand. L'daitcha, according to your opinion, so to speak. And the other thing is Rashi, when Rashi says the l'cha over here means as you wish, send shluchim according to your das, according to your if you understand that it's the right thing to do. So Rashi says l'daitcha ani eini mitzav l'cha. So the question is usually when Rashi says shlach l'daitcha ani eini mitzav l'cha im tirtze shlach. So usually when Rashi says his pirush on chumash, Rashi is never just says the pshat itself. He's not shaylel the option that we're negating here. Here, Rashi is coming to say that if would have just said Shlach, Anoshim, the Pshat would have been that the Eibush, Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus, is giving a tzibui. The Eibush is giving a command to send Anoshim. So Rashi is saying it wasn't a command. The Eibush told him it's L'daitcha, im tirtze Shlach. Why does Rashi have to say the Shlila, ani eini mitzav l'cha? First of all, we would understand it without Rashi saying it. Rashi says L'daitcha, im tirtze Shlach. If you wish, if you want, you should send. Verstemer that the Eibush is not giving him a command. It's a command, so it's not totally if he wants. Why does Rashi have to add ani eini mitzav l'cha? And Bechlad, Rashi's derech and chumash is not to say the shayla or to say the havamina and then say the maskana. He says the Rabchila was the correct pshat, and and that already it's by itself is shayla the svaris. And here we don't need to say the shayla because it's self-understood. And tirsa shlach means that there's no tzivui. So the Rebbe explains it really in two ways. So one of the points is when Rashi, the klal is when Rashi brings one of the klal that the Rebbe spoke about a few times, that when Rashi says a havamin and a shayla, that means that the havamin is neget and olam askana also. When Rashi says ani eni mitzavel, Rashi is coming to be meram is that there is a tzivui here. It's not the pshat that the Eibusha told him that I'm not telling you that it's not that you do it the way you understand it. The tzivui was there's certain things the Eibusha wants that we should do it, not because he was mitzvah us to do, but we should do it because we ourselves, our opinion is to do the way the Eibusha wants. That brings mitzvah tzitzis, so there's no chiyuv for a person to buy a baguette of that kanfis and put on tzitzis. It's a mitzvah which is a reshus. If a person has a baguette of that kanfis, he has to put on tzitzis. So the question is, if the Eibusha wants that a yid should put tzitzis on his arba kanfis in order to remember to remember all the mitzvahs, but gedar is an achiyuv that a yid should wear a baguette without kanfis and put on tzitzis. Why is there no tzivui? And because of that, there's the Mechas Chinuch wants to say that there's the Indian is not that the Eibusher wants the Ratzon Elin is to have tzitzis on the dal kanfis. There's an issue with having the arba kanfis without tzitzis. He says that if there would have been a mitzvah, if the Ratzon Elin would have been the Eibusher is in chiyuvi and wearing tzitzis on the dal kanfis, what gedar is an achiyuv that you should get a bag of dal kanfis and wear tzitzis. But the fact there's no such a chiyuv means that the wearing a bag of dal kanfis without tzitzis is a problem, is an isser. Not that there's a in chiyuvi in putting on the tzitzis. But upon him, so the Rebbe touches it is, of course, is the Ratzon Elin is that he should wear tzitzis. And the schartem is in so very you said this to get mitzvah. Schartem is called mitzvah Hashem to remember all the mitzvahs. The mitzvah tzitzis is a mitzvah which is shkula connected kol mitzvahs. But the Eibusher wants that the fact that a yid puts on tzitzis, the fact that a yid does things to remember mitzvahs Hashem should be something. Not he's remembering the Eibusher's mitzvahs because we commanded him to remember the Eibusher's mitzvahs. That should be his will. He should understand that it's good for him, or that it's something that should be important to him. His das should dictate him that he should want to do pu'ulis. He should want to do things in order to remember the Eibusher's mitzvahs. So there's certain things that the Eibusher wants that a person should do there, not because matam gehasen, but because that's his das, his seichel. His opinion is that it's correct and it's right and it's good to do this thing. So that is like here when get to the Yidden going into Eretz Yisrael. So there's certain things the Eibusher wants that the Eibusher gets sivoyim and durchführen, but the command that the Eibusher gives. But there's certain things the Eibusher wants. It's the Rashi says ani eni mitzaveh. Rashi is saying is not totally negating the fact that there's no tzivui. There is a ratzon, there is a tzivui, but the ratzon is the Eibusher wants a Yid should go into Eretz Yisrael, but he wants that it should be in a way that he himself, his opinion is, his understanding is that it's the right thing to do to go to Eretz Yisrael. Zecharayin liegen in the shlichus of going into Eretz Yisrael. It should be according to his das. And another point the Rebbe says is that the shaila is Rashi. Why does Rashi say ani mitzavelach? You can't just what's the shaila? Rashi could have said directly. That l'dayitchem tirsa shlach. Why does he have to add ani mitzavelach? Well, the thing is that there's no such a thing that a person im tirsa shlach. The truth is that that kol hashechovitz Hashem asa. The Eibusher is the one that's in control, and Yidden are avodim to the Eibusher, and there's no mitzias, there's ein edmel vadi. The only factor that exists is the Eibusher and his ratzon. So what's the pshat b'chlad that there's a mitzias of a person that has a will? You can't begin by saying im tirza shlach l'daitcha. What says that a person has his own das, so to speak? The truth is that there's only the Eibusher, there's ein edmel vadi, and a person, and the whole mitzias of the person is to carry out what the Eibusher wants. So that's what Rashi is makdem ani eini mitzavelach. That means the Eibusher is saying that he himself is giving a special Indian that his kaviyachol wants a person. He doesn't want it. There's certain things that the Eibusher wants that a person should have das. And ani eini mitzavelach is part of the Indian. The Eibusher is saying in this case I'm creating this factor that I'm not getting. That you do have your das, you do have your seichel, and the Eibusher wants that, and so to speak, I'm not going to interfere and tell you what to do. And I want that your das itself should come to the conclusion, not because I said so, not because there's some factor imposing on you to do what the Eibusher wants, but you yourself come to the conclusion that the correct thing is to do what the Eibusher wants. It should stem from that's what the person wants. That should be his pchir is. Kaviyachol, the Eibusher is saying he gave us a special power that he's not going to interfere with us, and he wants that our mitzias, our das, should on their own come to the conclusion, behesent to what the Eibusher wants. And the Rebbe, that's in general, you have two in Yonim and Aved Hashem in general. There's one Indian of that the Aved that Ein Arech Nivra Lebeira, and that the truth is that the Eibusher is the one which is the Yidden are Avadahim. We're Avadim to the Eibusher. And Aved means that he carries out, he's dedicated to carry out what his master tells him. It's not a gay whether he understands it or not. It's a nakuda of giving himself over fully to the Ratzon HaAd, being mavatl himself. But then there's another thing that not that the Yid is an Eved just towards the Eibusher, but the Avdus expresses in the fact that a Yid does have a mitzias and he has a seichel v'das, and the truth of his mitzias, the truth of his being is to do what the Eibishter wants. Not only because he negates himself to do what the Eibishter wants, but the truth of what he is. Who is he? What is he at his core? And what is his mitzias dictate to do what the Eibishter wants? And that's a deeper in it. The Eibishter Kaviyachal doesn't, in order for that to be expressed, it doesn't interfere in the behavior of the person in certain things. In order for the fact that the person is doing and thinking and being involved, what the Eibishter wants should be something that stems from him himself. That's what his mitzias dictates. And that Rebbe says demands a deeper yigia and a deeper nesinas koyach momayla. And this is the maybe I'll just say something maybe of the Hefsher a little bit. There's some a gewisses Eiros a little bit around this time of the year. It's 50 years since the Rebbe was established the base Pesukim Amar Chazal that should chazer about that. And the interesting thing is, like you have the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya that you have different David and Bach Havakuk V'Amid and Alachas. That the fact that he was maimed all the Torah mitzvahs, of course, the Yid has to do 613 mitzvahs. What does it mean? That he chose to focus on one thing. If you focus on this one thing, it gives you a chayes in the entirety of kiyam Torah mitzvahs. And midan alachas, that what's going to give you a kiyam, what's going to give a takev, and what's going to bring a chayes in doing all the 613 mitzvahs. That's through the focus, through a Yid is understanding the inyan of tzaddik u'manasi yechayes. Al derech zeh, these 12 psukim is yisaidis, which there are 12 principles, which with the Rebbe's lashon is gives a whole new light in a Yid Avodas Hashem. 12 inyanim which are pashut negay, which give a chayes and a lichtigkeit in a Yid. 12 Yisraelis give a Yid a chayes in his day-to-day Avodas Hashem. So it could be, as it's known, that these 12 psukim wasn't, the Rebbe didn't say them all or choose them. It was really in two groups. And they were also, there was 2 different times. One of them is Shchedeshir, one of them is like Ba'emer. So the first 6, it was 6 and 6. The first 6, 2 from Teresh B'Ksav, 2 Mamare Chazal, and 2 from Tanya. And then another time, 2 from Teresh B'Ksav, 2 from Mamare Chazal, and 2 from Tanya. And it's possible that the different B'Yorim and what's the sequence of the Psukim, the B'Yorim and the Psukim, but in a certain way, the 2 groups also correspond, or maybe there's a connection between these 2 Inyanim and Avodas Hashem. The first group, the Torah, Tziva Lanu, Moshe, and Shema Yisrael, all bring out what a Yid has Malmayla. The what's till Parsha Shlach. Before we get, if the person doesn't have, it's not about his das. His das is not a factor yet. And our mitzvah is not a factor. The whole mitzvah of a Yid is from Matan Torah, Be'ikr, that the Kli B'nei Yisrael Avadim, that the whole mitzvah of a Yid is to carry out what the Eibishter wants. The Eibishter, Matan Torah, the Eibishter gave us his Torah, gave us mitzvahs, and the Aved of a Yid is to carry out what the Eibishter gave him, to continue that and to be mamshech that in the world. And that you have expressed in the first 6 psukim. You have Torah Tziva is the fact that the Eibishter gave us Torah mitzvahs, and you say Meirasha Kilesakav Yerusha is not something that a person earned with his own haravanya. It's something that he receives Milmaila, something that he receives from the Elyon. And the whole Torah mitzvah, a person has to be miyakir this Torah which the Eibishter gave him. There's the Shema Yisrael Shem Elokeinu Hashem Echad brings out that there's nothing besides the Eibishter, the Achtos Hashem. There's nothing outside of the Mitzvah of Elokus, and we're not the person that his whole mitzvah is to know this and to live this achdus, but it's not his mitzias is not what's significant or not what's the factor here. What his seichel, what his mitzias is mechayif. Fakert is the akar that there's only the Eibishter. Al derech the other, so chol derech the Yitzias Mitzrayim is something which the Eibishter took us out of Mitzrayim, and the fact that every Yid has a chedek elul is because the Eibishter made us neitzim atay ma'aseh yad elisbar. We're the Eibishter's ma'asim. He created us, and the Yid is intrinsically connected to Lakus, regardless of his behavior. The Eibishter gave us an Hashem. Al derech zeh kikarev and vihine Hashem nitzav olav is all that the tzivur, the command of the Eibishter is something which every person could fulfill, because the Eibishter gives us the character to fulfill it, and the Hashem Nitzav Allah is how it's important for the Eibishter for us to fulfill his. But it's all from the point of view of the Elyon, so to speak. It's all not the Uftov Shlach, but it's all how the Eibishter gave us a Torah mitzvahs, and how it's the importance of carrying out this Torah mitzvahs, and the fact that the person's whole mitzvah should be to carry out what the Eibishter wants. But the other 6 psukim really focus more on that the person, his mitzvahs, should internalize this Torah and this mitzvahs. Not only that he should do it as like the Friedrich Rebbe writes this in a letter after Tafshin around the Shleshim after Tafshin Yud, Lashon Friedrich Rebbe, that he says Echad Hay Avram. The not first thing is that Avram by Emat Meir given the Echad, that a Lakus was Meir by him, and the pasuk says Echad Hay Avram. Avram was an Echadiker. That's what his mitzvah is. What was Avram's mitzvah about? What was his seichel b'das? What was he all about? He was about carrying out what the Eibishter wants. So that's the second Adgasha is Beishas Bar Lekin. The Eibishter created a world. The first thing, there's Torah. The Eibishter gave us a Torah. The second group is that there's the Eibishter Toshafen Avelt, so the Himmel, so the Earth, and there's a person, there's a Seichel, and there's his Das. And then vishinantam levanecha, that a person should be that the Torah should be chayed the person's mitzias. It should become a part of him. To the extent that if a person, like the Gemara says, vishinantam, if a person asks you a shayla, you shouldn't have to remind yourself, or it's some vague in your head. That's mechudadim beficha. It's something which is a part of your language, a part of your lingo, a part of your life. And the same thing that hemshich, of course, your guy, that a person has to lean hard of it. The Rebbe brings in the Sikh in Shlach Mem Test, this Aveda, the Aveda being mevatel himself to the Eibishter is also a Yigiyah. But the kumtish to the Yigiyah of Aseirit Seincha Kirtzainei, not only a Yid puts himself away to carry out what the Eibishter wants, but his interest is to do what the Eibishter wants. His chayis is to do what the Eibishter wants. That's what he wants. That's something that stems from his will. That's a deeper Yigiyah, that a person has to change himself and to work over his mitzias. That's your guide. That's the heart of Anya. Your guide to Mitzvah is that a person should and the same thing also the inyan of Ava, the inyan of Ava. Same way a person loves himself not by that's by nature. A person by nature loves himself. So a person's Ava and his Chayy should be in another Yid. And the same thing with Zekala Adam, the Alter Rebbe is madgish, not just saying that there's a kavanah malmayla. There's a kavanah malmayla which you have to fulfill. Here it's Zekala Adam. This is the mitzvah of the person, the entirety. What is a person? And the whole function of his creation, thus is a mensch. We're not just saying that there's a kavanah and the person has to negate himself. So da mensch, but what is this whole person? What is their mensch? The kavanah of last leis barat. That what is the mitzvah sa'adam that by em zol sich uplig in the emes of Holocaust, the emes of Torah and the emes of Chassidus. And then that's also Yismach Yisrael ba'esav. That's the real simcha that the Eibishter, when a Yid does his aveda, and the Rebbe brings in the Sirah that the true yichud of Yid with the Eibishter is not when he negates himself, when he puts himself aside for the sake of the Eibishter, but that becomes who he is. That's what his mitzvah is. That causes the true simcha of Yismach Yisrael ba'esav, and the true simcha of the Eibishter is the true kavanah. The primis kavanah is that should be the chayes and the simcha of a Yid, the ras yezu b'sachteinim. And just to connect it to the Rebbe brings in the Sirah of Chof Ches Sivan and Gimmel Tammuz, that the Rebbe brings that Sivan is Chedesh HaShlishi. And Chassidus explains that Shlishi 3 represents the Mashpia. The Gemara says the 3 is Gimmel is number 3, and Gimmel is Gmoil is the Mashpia. So Sivan is the Chedesh of Matan Torah, where the Eibusha gave us Keches Malmayla. That's Sivan. But the ultimate kayach of Sivan, the ultimate purpose of Sivan is to give kayach that a yid for the Chedesh Tammuz. Tammuz is called in Torah Chedesh HaRevi. Revi goes in the Mekabel. Dalit is the Dal, the Mekabel. And the ultimate kayach, the ultimate kavana, the pnimis kavana of the Nesina of the Ashpa of the Elyon is not only that a yid should be mevatel himself to the Ratzon Elyon, but that should become who he is. L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim. Shkoyach, Rabbi Kaplan, that was very geschmack, especially the whole beer in the psukim and how you makasher it with Sivan and Tammuz and the Aveda Samata. Just I used the word Farbrengen, so I just wanted to be Moshe, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lashon in the Sikha Moshe Hayo Sameach.
Yeah.
That when the Eibusha said L'daitecha, it brought Moshe a simcha. It should be hepech a simcha, because sort of he's being told, run on your own. And Fakert Moshe realized that this was a tnufa chadasha.
The Eibusha is not running away from him. He's not. The Eibusha is not. It's a deepness in Askayach from the Elyon. That the pnimius of Moshe is the Ratzon Elyon.
Right. And I got to thinking. You mentioned the Aser Tzeincha Kiritzoinoi, that sometimes the L'daitecha, it can go off the rails. So the Aveda is Aser Tzeincha Kiritzoinoi. Not that you should do L'daitecha mamish, but you should figure out what's the Ratzon of the Eibishter and make that your Ratzon should be the Ratzon of the Eibishter. Similar to the Sikha that we were learning this week in Chelik Lamed Gimel, that when the Meraglim involved the Inyan Shel Sheker, the Inyan of Rigel, the espionage, instead of Losur Sa'aretz, so this was already, it was Uis Anshe Moshe. So one of the Sikhs, not Lamed Gimel, I think it's, I don't remember which one, that the Rebbe says that the mistake of the Meraglim was that they thought that there was a question about the Knesset La'aretz.
Whether it should be done or not.
Oh, the L'daitecha was the Oifen, the Shiluach, but not for the Knesset La'aretz itself.
Rebbe brings here in the Sikha also that certain inyanim, and most inyanim is carrying out the Tzivah HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In gewisse Sachen, the Eibusha wants a Yid to express that's what his Ratzon is, that's what his Das is. It's not that him is Einer Alein. First of all, the Einer Alein is also a specialness in his kayach, and a deeperness in his kayach than regular doing mitzvahs. And that itself is, of course, Vaad is bringing that there's not only there's only the Eibusha, because that's who we are also.
in the next week's Farbrengen, in Hey Tammuz, Shabbos Parshas Kerach of Tashman Tes. So the Rebbe is mamshich on this topic, and later the Rebbe is mekashet with Parshas Kerach, and he says about the Mata Arim B'Teich Matesam, that Kerach's tos was he didn't realize that even though there needs to be kulam kedoshim, but from deswegen there has to be a nasi adir that's mashpia to the dir. Everyone's talking kedoshim, and the Rebbe is masber that's mate arin b'teich matesam. So at the end, the Rebbe learns the hira, and he says, "The afal pi was the aveda in chatzika der atachten is the chiddush from the bala geula the gabe the nesim shelafonov gitter to call anchi hader the stand the aveda." That the Rebbe gives each and every single person of the dir to do the aveda. Von zusammen der Mitvas der Nasi Adir is Meremam und Hecher für die Anshe Adir. Gefindt sich aber beteich Matesam, beteich Kalachat Ve'echad. I'm not going to continue to read the whole Sikha, but the Nakuda I wanted to bring out is based on what you're saying, is that when it came to the Daitecha, the Rebbe is learning that at least in this tkufa that the Rabbeim, the Friedrich Rebbe, and then the Rebbe in this tkufa gave each and every person of the Doyer the ability to do the Avodah, and to whenever the Daitecha is called for, whenever it's needed that a person should employ his own das. And the asay tzeicha kiritzeinoi, we as long as we know that it's mati arim b'teich matesam, that the Rebbe is between us and amongst us and giving us the guidance of how to do the l'daitecha, is each and every one of us have the ability and the power to do l'daitecha v'ulei adirabba. This is the final call of this day, the last day of Galus and the first day of the Geula, that we should do whatever we can l'daitecha, and kamuven the feed the ratzon of the Rebbe, and we should be zeichet to bring the geula bekar of mamish. L'chaim. Akopanim, as it is Chof Ches Sivan, and it's we know that when it came to Tzfas Kislev, so the Bavram, the son of the Alter Rebbe, would tell over the story. So even though the story is Yodua Mufursim, but there's always an issue of Hayamim Eilen Niskarin V'Nasim. So we'll throughout the evening we'll try to bring in some of the details of the story that had happened, and how it was in the earliest when it actually happened in Tafshin Aleph, and how it became a Yom Tov Chassidim. So to continue the Farbrengen, we turn to Rabbi Leibel Shapiro, my Rosh Yeshiva, and a member of Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus, the Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva Gedela of Greater Miami, Rabbi Shapiro, L'chaim.
L'chaim. And what I'm going to do is, I'm sure later on, the other speakers, Farbrengens, are going to talk about the Yonim, the meaning behind Chof Ches Sivan, the Ruchnisdik in Yonim, what is meant in Aveda, in all in Yonim. What I'm going to try to do is speak more the Balabatish part of it. The Balabatish should talk about what Chof Ches Sivan is. Now, we know Chof Ches Sivan is based on Tesoder. Just like Tesoder, the Rebbe made a whole fuss over Tesoder, so we understand that the same thing is B'negei Chof Ches Sivan, and noch a knuf chadosher, that's a higher madrege, so it's based on what happened to Tesoder. What's the whole idea? The whole idea is that in the Chotzik Adar Atachten, you're able to bring a lukus. That's the bottom line. And by the way, you have to know Chotzik Adar Atachten, it's not Chotzik Adar Atachten from north to south, but it's from east to west. It's a different type of chotzeka. You would think, you take the globe and you would think it's chotzeka der atachten. So l'chure, this is not chotzeka der atachten. But it means from east to west, chotzeka der atachten. It's a different way to looking at it. But to bring a lakus in chotzeka der atachten. And that's something very, very special. And that's special tes oder. And that's special Chof Ches Sivan. B'yeser seis b'yeser b'tnuf chadosha. What's so special about bringing a lakus here in America in chotzeka der atachten? You make a whole fuss. The Rebbe came on this day. The Friedrich Rebbe came on Tesoder. What's so special? We don't make. Does anyone know which day the Rebbe, Friedrich Rebbe, came to Riga? You know which day he came to Atvodsk? What's the big deal that we say he came to America, Africa, and he brought it into America? Every place he came, he brought a lakus. So what's the big fuss that we make? So I want to be from the Balabatish part. It's all based on the Maimer, the letter of the Friedrich Rebbe to the Rebbe, which is based. He brings a Maimer from the Alter Rebbe. There's a letter that the Friedrich Rebbe wrote to the Rebbe saying, I'm answering your question that you asked. Is it true what the Alter Rebbe said that in Chotzik Adar Atachten in America, I think he said, in America, in Ishgewenke Matan Teure. Is that true? And the Frierdiker Rebbe writes a letter printed in Chof Ches, in Sefer Amor in Chof Ches, later it's printed in the Yiddishkeit of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Chelik Beis, and the Frierdiker Rebbe answers him a long letter. So in Chof Ches, it doesn't say who the letter is, it says, Elechet Mechasnov, but in the Yiddishkeit of the Frierdiker Rebbe, it says clearly this is a letter to the Rebbe. And the Frierdiker Rebbe answers him, he says, a long letter with a lot of hakdomis, and the letter he says like this, Lahavin Ha'inyan, America, white people in America don't fall down. If they're standing upside down, we're on top and they're in the bottom, so they should fall. And he's masbid there that the answer that they give, because there's gravity, ain't it tirutzamein emes. I don't know what that means. If it means push it, that's not true that there is gravity, or that's not the teretz. That's not the real teretz. The real teretz is because if Igulim, the ganze Yonif von Elam Haza comes from the level, the darge von Igulim, and Igulim is ein lemayla mate, but all the same. But then it goes up, Sedod Dinyan von Yesher, Sedod Igulim, Sedod Dinyan von Yesher. Mitzad dem Minyan von Yesher is jeder mayla mate. Mitzad dem Minyan von Yesher is dort darges. And the fire, the Gilui Lukus that happened by Matan Teure, that Gilui Lukus was not all over the same. Just like we have that the chayas of the nefesh is in the whole body, nevertheless, we say the hashros chayas is in the meach. So it's more hashro than the rest. Same thing here. Gilui Lukus by Matan Teure helped all over. But Mitzad Yesher, Rebal said dort darges, the b'meila, there's Maila Mato, and this is further away. So the union of in America, it's further away from Matan Teure. I think the simple pshat is, if you're looking at a globe, the earth is a globe. So when you speak, you have a big round thing and you speak, it could be heard all over. For Fashtetzach, on the other side of the globe, it's not heard the same. So when the Ibisha said that, I'm just saying very balabatish, what the Ibisha said, I said dibris. So when he said it, where he was saying it on Har Sinai, but it went throughout the whole world. To the other side of the world, what happened? It was shvache. So the gilui was shvache. Vade, the hashro is there, just like the hashro is in the meyach. Nevertheless, the whole goof has the chayas, so it has all over. The pale, what comes out from here is that in America, in Chotzikader Atachten, there is less gilui lukus. Riga is not in Chotzikader Atach or other places. So coming to America, that's where there's a less gilui lukus. That's the greatest thing. That's the greatest thing. We know, but not only from the Rabbi, we know what America was known as the treif in the Medina. America is, there's no gilui lukus in America. They tell a story that some people from America came to the Sholem Belzer, asked him to move to America. And he answered, have to think about it. He gave, give me 3 days. After 3 days, he came back and he said, I can't. And he gave a reason. Why? While a place that the Baal Shem Tov, the Talmidim weren't there, I can't go there. Which is along the same lines as this, because there's no gilui lukus there. We know the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he came to America, the Frierdiker Rebbe said, made the whole takon of Chazin Mishnayis Balpeh. And it's not just like Shem Mishnayis Balpeh. He gave a reason. Because the Avir is Mu'upish. The Avir is contaminated. But mainly you have to be Mezachich the Avir, you have to Chazin Mishnayis Balpeh. So that means that the Indian in America is the Chal, the Matzah in America, and the Tzadgilui Lakus, it's a very, very far madrege for that. Even there were the Rabbonim here, there were other Rabbonim who came to America. No one succeeded. It was very hard to succeed to make America into Amok and Shildusha. You know, even one of the Talmid, the Chassidim from the Tzemach Tzedek, who was the one that worked on printing the Tshuvas of the Tzemach Tzedek, moved to America. But it didn't make a difference. He's the one that's known that he put up a sign on his house that he's the Rabbi Rosh of America. And someone asked him, who made you the Rabbi Rosh? He said, the sign. But upon him, he's a person that came to America and that Gornish and other people came to America. When they came to Rav Sholem Belzer, he said, I'm not coming. And now he told him, get to, they don't know about these things. So they went to the Ritva who wrote the Pirush and the Yerushalmi. He came to America. He stayed there for a short while in Zatlofen, because there's in America, that's a place which is a very low place. Since it's a low place, that's the Tachtainim. So when they did it with Tachtainim, it's very hard to do it here. And to come here and to do it, that's something special. Rabbi Weberman, who used to be here told me that his great-great-great-grandfather was sent to America by the son of the Divrei Chaim. He came to the Shinover, and he didn't want to come because was das einmal meine Kinder. So he said, I'll give you a brocha, I'll promise you that the Kinder Eineklach when Allah sein, Yireim Shleimim. And that helped. But otherwise, what would be? America was a place where there's no kedusha here. And mitzad ruchnis and because of the fact that the Matan Torah was a less madrega here, so it's a lower madrega, it's hard. When I was a young bocher, I heard a story that there was once a Makubal who came to Lubavitch, and he was farbrengen with the Elam, with the bocher, and he told him that he sees al Pikabola as Far Mashiach is the Rabbi in in America. Very interesting, and that's Zugetroffen. I once asked the Peretz Mochkin, I heard a Makubal came. So he started smiling. He says, a Makubal came. Yeah. Rebbe Hoffman, he went Chassidus, he went Makubal. He's actually brought down in the Sichas. For the Friedrich Rebbe brings him that he went to Yiddishkeit Rebbe Rashab, the whole story there. And he says, Rebbe Hoffman said it. And then he smiles to me and he says, Ibn Gewem bei Jana Farbrengen. I was by that Farbrengen in Lubavitch. I don't know which year. He told me the year. I forgot already which year. So he was there. So the pshat is to come to America and make a change in America. That's changing Seder Ishtalshad. I don't know which lotion to use. So that's why Tes Oder is so special. And B'meile Chof Ches Sivan, which is a hemshech to Tes Oder, is a vada special. And we got to take it off from it. So what I want to chazer over is, I remember if I bring in Tes Oder Tov Shin Chof Hei. And I remember it like today, 61 years ago, Tov Shin Chof Hei. Tes Oder Sheni came out on Shabbos. So for that Shabbos came, yes, the All Amerikaner Tmimim that were in America, when the Friedrich Rebbe came in those days, they all came for Shabbos for Farbrengen. And it was 25 years from Tes Oder Tov Shin. This was Tov Shin Chof Hei. So the Rebbe spoke about it by Farbrengen. At middle of the Farbrengen, he said, it's 25 years, but maybe there's a lot of people that came. What is a lot of people? Maybe 25 people. Those years, anytime there was one guest for Shabbos, alle gewusst, oh, sie da Eirach of Shabbos. I mean, not can twisten turn, can wissen. So one person came here, 20 people, 25 people, like the people who are the Tmimim from America. And they came, and the Rebbe spoke about it. And the Rebbe said that he doesn't see where there is a number 25 that's so special. We find 10 is a special in Torah, 20, 30, 50, Avadet. 25, I don't know. Aber es macht nicht durch. The brief von Rebbe Rashab, aber not saying Pirushim in Tanya, aber es geht so zu Yerushalayim tut. So much to give Yerushalayim. Meil auf Naruslan Nayero. And I think they wrote that the Rebbe said then from Tes Oder could apply now for us when we do 85 years from Chof Ches Sivan. I don't know if 85 years is a special number either. I don't know if in Torah, I'm not familiar if it's special, but it's 85 years. It's a special. What did the Rebbe explain then? He said that the Friedrich Rebbe, I'm going to say in the Kuda Bekitzer, that the Friedrich Rebbe, when he came to America, he said, these are the words he said, that Dank in the Meibish became in the Meitzer al Amercha. He said more things, but I'm saying these words. What's that Shechiyonu? Shechiyonu, to renew yourself, bring Anaya Chayas. And the Rebbe went in the whole era. Since the Friedrich Rebbe used the Loshem, is gekommen in the Meitzer al Amercha. Do Asach Yidin was gekommen in the Meitzer al Amercha. The Russisch Yidin was gekommen for Russland. This was Chof Hei. It wasn't so long since they escaped Russia. Und sein Gewinn auf Mesiras Nefesh, ich eigentlich auf Mesiras Nefesh, wie eine Kleinigkeit. Und nicht, der was hat vergessen auf dem Mesiras Nefesh. Vergessen auf dem Mesiras Nefesh, ist geworden verbunden mit den Hanoges Hamedine. Und jede Sache ist die Smokim, die alle weltische Sachen. Lemoschel, der Gaustug, der Rebbe sagt, der Gaustug darf sein Punkt auf der Nord und die Socken darf matchen, ich weiß, whatever der Rebbe sagt, heute geworden, darf man gedenken, darf noch einmal Machade sein, der Mesiras Nefesh. And that was said concerning Tes Oder 25 years. Now we're talking about the Chof Ches Sivan, 85 years. Darf man warte Machade sein, Mesiras Nefesh. Baruch Hashem, unser Mesiras Nefesh, another Mesiras Nefesh, of the same Mesiras Nefesh, there's maybe a stronger Mesiras Nefesh. Sie da Evdim Beretz Asher und Nedoch in Beretz Mitzrayim. They were Nedoch in Beretz Mitzrayim Meitzar und das nicht gemeitzer, aber es ist Asher. Und sie bleiben am Mesiras Nefesh. Woher er dort und gehabt und Olav Davke. So the lesson that he wrote, that the Rebbe took from Tes Oder is this Nekuda, dass as man auf Mechadish sein, der Mesiras Nefesh. Ist für uns meint das sicher, dass Mechadish sein, der Mesiras Nefesh. Ich will nur sagen, noch ein paar Wörter, also man darf gucken auf Chof Ches Sivan, es ist ein anderer Nekuda, es ist ein anderer Prat. Das ist Gewinner hat Zolle für einen Rebbe Poshe Begashmis. Weißen, das ist der Zolle für Rebbe. Ich sage, gut, dass der Rebbe kommt in Amerika. Und in Amerika hat gebracht, hat nur verdeilen. Und gebracht, der Betachtenim. Poshe hat Zolle für Rebbe. Ich denke, wenn der Rebbe die Geräte gedruckt und könnte sich als Gimmel Tammuz. Und der Rebbe hat gesagt, als Gimmel Tammuz bei ihm ist, darf sein aggressere Yontef, wie Yud Beis Tammuz. Für was der Friedrich Rebbe das nicht gemacht, weil beim Friedrich Rebbe sein, mit sie, es ist nur, man fasst ihm sein Chassidus. Kolzmann, das ist nicht gekommen zu So eine Möglichkeit, nicht das Ayont, bis damals, ist frei, kann sein. Aber man hat Chassidim, darf sein, für was? Weil Gimmel Tammuz ist eine Gehe Poshet, wir haben Rebbe Masber, Poshet, mit einer Moves Lachaim. Und es ist gekommen, der Friedrich Rebbe, gekrogen sein, Poshet sein Leben. Und das ist für Chassidim die wichtigste Sache. Der Fall, das retten doch allemal, man retten Schädisch Kislev, der Rebbe, noch der Heart Attack. Das sage ich, es ist eine Gehe Poshet zum Rebbe, ist gesund, Rebbe allein. Dieselbe Sache, da ist der Rebbe, Poshet geraten wird geworden von den Nazis, Yemach Shemom, und das ist eine Sache allein, worth celebration. That itself is important. Und noch eine Kunde will sagen, heute ist das Mann, was, ja, ich sage Menschen sagen Gedanken. Er sagt, das ist vor der Philosophie, mit Fantasies, ich weiß nicht, und nicht nur das Wetter, einer sagt das Sachen, und sie hat sich on, in all sides of the spectrum. Und sie wird, oh, if you don't believe it, you're applicators. I don't know that. But I still want to say something. Why should I be different? I'll say something because of fantasia, and take it or leave it. If you want, I'll say something. I think there's something here in Chof Ches Sivan, another Nakuda. With Hakdome, we find a lot of similarities between the Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov. Bechlal, the whole Rebbe is coming on the scene, is mamish like the Baal Shem Tov. When you get the Baal Shem Tov, so the Rebbe speaks from Pinchas Koritzer, that the Welt, Yiddische Welt, his alphas. The Yiddische Welt was in a faint. Why? It was after Tachvatat, who's gehargetet. 100,000 Teriden, the Gashmias was very low. The Matzav Ruach Ruchni, and the Matzav given alle Poshetiden, the very low Madrege. So when a person faints, what do? You call him by his name. The Eibishter called Klal Yisrael by their name. He brought down an neshama called Yisrael. That's Klal Yisrael. And that woke up the Eden. If you make a cheshbon by the Rebbe, it's exactly the same way. The Rebbe came right after the Holocaust. Haget 6 million Niden Rachmanu Litzlan. The Matzav Ruchni came to America, is given the Matzav Ruchni Mamish Loshe below. And the Rebbe, the Eibishter sent down the neshama of the Rebbe and gave him a name of Nechome. Nechome for the world, just like Eibishter gave a name Yisrael. So I want to say there's a similarity, since there's similarity from the Baal Shem Tov, there's another Nakud. By the Baal Shem Tov, the way it went, the Baal Shem Tov first was a Nister, and then he went by Galus. By Rebbe gefunden derselbe Sache. First there was a Nister, as much as it says in the Der Herr from this month, as the Rebbe spoke before when there was a till this the hair came up, most people didn't know about it. There was an Easter. There was quite. But Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus made himself look like a ish poshet. He wasn't like a ish poshet. Oh, but he didn't make a fuss. He wasn't a public figure. It was an Easter basically. When did the Isgalus of the Rebbe start? When did he become this public figure and his Isgalus became a people? When he came to America. When he came to America, that's when people realized what the Rebbe is. So I think Chof Ches Sivan represents this idea, that it is galus for Rebbe, the people should know that started Chof Ches Sivan. So just like by the Baal Shem Tov, Chayel, he was born, and his galus also happened to be Chayel years later. But the Rebbe was born in Yud of Nisan, and the Gilui that she came and was put into the head of the meisters that the Friedrich Rebbe made, and started Nufa Chadosha, and the Rebbe's Messias became so known that started Chof Ches Sivan, that's his galus. But maybe it's another reason that to celebrate Chof Ches Sivan. Now, take it or leave it. Ich weiß nicht, oder ja oder nicht. Das war es nicht in Kiddush Lokshens, nicht in Kiddush Kedoshim. Akaponim, one thing's for sure, when it comes to such a day like Chof Ches Sivan, that's a day that we have to say Ashrenu Matei Cholkeinu, and we have to thank the Eibishter, and we have to be Machazek Hahiskashrus to the Rebbe, and do what the Rebbe wants, and the Hiskashrus should be L'maisa B'Peil, there's the type of Hiskashrus. I love the Rebbe. Very good. You love the Rebbe. You got to do something about it. Like the joke that they bring that the rabbi who spoke one Shabbos about Shabbos, one Shabbos about Kasha, the president, don't talk about those things. So what should I talk about? Talk about Yiddishkeit. We talk about this Kasha and Maisa B'Peil, Lerner Chitas, Lerner Rambam, Thomas the Rebbe Vilgen of Mitzoyim, Lerner Zayin, Ayita Yerushalayim. That's what we have to straighten Chof Ches Sivan, and this is the best achone to Gimmel Tammuz. But we hope by Gimmel Tammuz wird mich sein zusammen mit den Rebben, wir sein in der Yisrael, und es sein der Gula Shlomo Bekorev Mamish.
Chaim, Shkoyach Rabbi Shapiro, you said you didn't know if there was something special about 85.
Yeah, let's see.
So, a couple of days ago, someone went to ChatGPT and asked if there's anything that's special about 85. So ChatGPT answered that it's 85 years since the Rebbe came to America.
Really?
So instead suchen, das allein is the 85.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT had other Torahs as well, but that's certainly not
Not for us.
not for here, not for us. Exactly. So Ishkerach Rabbi Shapiro, and you said take it or leave it. We'll certainly take it because it's certainly what we're doing here. It's certainly the fact that we're farbrengen here tonight is the Hatzalah of the Rebbe, the Gashmis the Kazakh, and of course the fact that the Isis of the Baal Shem Tov, the comparison is very beautiful. Whether it's a mashal or a nimshal, it's both. And the reality is that ilav hayemed de kagarim. Then the Rebbe often refers to you brought out how America is the lowest of the lowest. The Rebbe says it's a chutza shein chutza imenu. But there's also a something about America that over the years the Rebbe spoke about. Recently there was a ksav yad about somebody that was traveling somewhere, and the Rebbe wrote to him to speak to them. It was two people to speak about mi Yehudi u betoikif da America.
Levy.
Okay, I didn't remember who it was, but there was a certain on the one hand it's a mata shein mata imenu. On the other hand, there's something here or that the Rebbe saw from here from this mata. There's going to be the ufheben, the olei nala of the world and the preparing it for Mashiach. To continue our farbrengen, we didn't really focus so much on the on the arum. In the time leading up, to Chof Ches Sivan Tavshin Aleph. But one of the things we know, and a little bit of it is printed in the Keves Chof Ches Sivan, and there's much more that was since been revealed by Jem in the early years, and other Vaad Or Vechom printed a Keves. And one of the things we know is besides for the Mesiras Nefesh and the struggles of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. Also, on the part of the Frierdiker Rebbe, there was a lot of tsar from the fact, a lot of effort invested, and a lot of pressure, if you can call it, to the people that were involved, and the fact that it didn't happen as soon as the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted it to. It's printed in the Kevitz, a quote from the Frierdiker Rebbe, where he said, "Leider is von die alle Gräse auf Tachis und die Süße Red, was man sagt euch." From everything, all the promises and all the sweet talking, so far nothing was accomplished. Ich bin sehr zerbrochen und habe groß Zar von dem. I'm broken and I'm in pain from this. Later on, when there was another letter sent to the State Department, the Frierdiker Rebbe writes, "Vashem Yisbarach Ya'azreinu li'ivasha ki yaveyu b'neseinu v'chasneinu yichyu keshura u'tzlacha tzlecha b'gashmis v'ruchnis." Hashem should help us. We should receive the salvation that our daughters and our sons-in-law, in this case the Frierdiker Rebbe was referring to Rebbetzin Sheina and her husband, that they should come safely and successfully Begashmis Beruchnis to hear. So certainly we could understand that the Simcha Gedola that the Frierdiker Rebbe experienced when the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin arrived, the fact that he sent the Bachrim to go to the pier, the things that the Frierdiker Rebbe said. So certainly there was a simcha gedela by the Frierdiker Rebbe to the fact that the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin arrived safely here to America. And we're going to ask Rabbi Groner from the Shliach Rashi to the Carolinas to speak about the Frierdiker Rebbe's first farbrengen after the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin arrived here to America. We're going to ask the Olam to say l'chaim, even though we're on a Zoom. We're Richuk Makom Gashmi, but the Rebbe himself says that Richuk Makom Gashmi is nothing, where it shouldn't be taken into consideration. So the only way we could really farbrengen and not just listen to speeches is if Kol Echad B'Mkei Mayu should take a little bit of l'chaim. We should say l'chaim. Rabbi Shapiro said it's Asherim Atev Chalkeinu, and to thank the Eibishter for Chof Ches Sivan, and to thank the Rebbe for everything that he gave us and gives us since the day that he arrived here, he and the Rebbetzin arrived here. And we owe it to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin to celebrate. We owe it to our children. We owe it to the generation, our children, or if we're children ourselves, to our fellow children, to farbreng and to celebrate. So l'chaim, The Rebbe says, helfen us so that as the Taka sein at Nufa Chadasha. The Rebbe said in Tes Adar that every year Tes Adar, there's a new Gilui and there's a new Inyan of Tes Adar. So every year Chof Ches Sivan, there's a new Gilui or Chadash, and we should keep up with it and we should utilize it to bring Mashiach now. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim. So it was very refreshing to hear the talks that were given before by Rabbi Kaplan and also by Rabbi Shapiro, the Inyan of Gimmel Tammuz connected to Chof Ches Sivan. But it's very interesting that based on what was said until now, the tzar that the Frierdiker Rebbe had by the delay of having the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin come to America, and then when he finally came, is expressed in many, many ways. But there's a ruchnisdike thing that happened on the first Farbrengen after the Rebbe arrived in the United States. That Shabbos was Gimmel Tammuz, and it was Parshas Kerach, and the Frierdiker Rebbe had a Farbrengen, and it's printed, it's a Mugatike Sicha in Tafshin Aleph, and it starts that Salib de Simchas HaTzala from Kveik Durushas on Admur, which was on Gimmel Tammuz Tafresh Pezayin, was Yemelt is a race from the bewussten Spielerjarne Tzfas in Russland, hat mir gepravet as so the Simcha in Rebbe's Huis. Anyways, the Frierdiker Rebbe said something. I want to just focus on what. There's a lot of inyanim there, but I want to focus on one thing. In Ois Beis, the Frierdiker Rebbe starts and he says that today Gimmel Tammuz is nismal geworden Yudalet Shana von dem Tag was ich befreit geworden. In other words, it's 14 years from when the Geula happened on the Gimmel Tammuz and Tafresh Pezayin. And he says that the erste Yudalet Shana is bebechinas von Yad Chazaka. Und jetzt hebt sich on Yad HaGdela. This is when the Rebbe came that he was able to say, jetzt hebt sich on Yad HaGdela. And he goes on to explain that Afopi, there were all the Giluyim in Mitzrayim, and there were Giluyim by Kriyas Yamsuf and Mezok B'Yad HaChazaka. And it's tremendous, but Shem Havaya idos nicht. It's not the Giluy of Shem Havaya, because everything that happened until then was still limited compared to what happened afterwards with the Giluyim that were later. And the Giluyim that were later were much greater than anything before. So B'Meila, it's a clear thing that the Frierdiker Rebbe indicated to us that the Rebbe is coming, and the Geula that the Rebbe had on Chof Ches Sivan is the Tkufa of Yad HaGdela. Now, in Chassidus, Retzich ben Negeh, the difference between Yad HaZaka and Yad HaGdela, and the Rebbe in a Maimer in Tafshin Chof Gimel, I think, speaks from what the Alter Rebbe says, but over there he says that Yad HaZaka is Nachal's Gvura and Simtzum. And Yad HaGdela is Chesed Bli Gvul, and not only is it Chesed Bli Gvul, but it's a Chesed was ken Zacharoplos, and so the needed Darges und es Mevarer sein und Aufheben. Which means to say that the birur that the Rebbe was going to bring to the Mokam Achi Tachton, as was mentioned before, which is the Indian of America, that the birur is going to be such a birur that's going to be a birur that was until now, and it could only be done by Yad HaGdela, and that had to be done through the Rebbe. So I want to share a story that I heard from my father. I think it's printed already, but it gives a little bit of an insight in this whole Nekuda. B'chlal, we know that the Frierdiker Rebbe has some Rebbe, so a famous story with Kazanovsky when he went to the Frierdiker Rebbe and he asked for advice, and then the Frierdiker Rebbe told him to go downstairs to the Rebbe's room, and Kazanovsky didn't tell the Rebbe what the Frierdiker Rebbe said. He just asked the Shaila, and the Rebbe gave entirely a different advice than the Frierdiker Rebbe. When the Frierdiker Rebbe inquired by Kazanovsky what the Rebbe said, so he gave a very big smile and said, it's a whole different thing that the Rebbe had. Now, who are we to evaluate it? But the story that I want to say is a story that happened with Rabbi Ephraim Yolos. Many people remember Ephraim Yolos, that he was very mekudev to the Rebbe, and he would sit very close to the Rebbe by the Farbrengen. But he also had a minig that Chalamoyed, he would come daven in 770 with the Streimel, and then after the davening, he would follow the Rebbe into his room. One time, he was in the Rebbe's room for a long time, And when he came out, his face was very red. And those that knew him could imagine how red his face was. And he told my father, Leibel, I heard things today that I never heard before. So my father inquired what it was. So he said that he told the Rebbe that Azevi state that the Alter Rebbe was Chochmah, and the Mittel Rebbe was Bina, and the Tzemach Tzedek was Das, and by uns nicht talking Chagas. So the Mele, the Rebbe Maharash was in from Netzach, the Rebbe Rashab was Heid, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was Yisait, Kum Techuis, that the Rebbe is Malchus. And the Rebbe said, yeah, Mir Zen and Malchus, on the Fari Doda Arichas Hadibur. That was the lashon that he told my father. When my father went into the Rebbe after that, the Rebbe asked him if Yolos exchanged some words with him. So he said yes. So he says, "Was hat gesagt?" So my father repeated exactly what he heard from Yolos. And the Rebbe said that he gesagt wird es gehört. The Rebbe wanted to make sure that he actually heard it. So the inyan that the Rebbe was Megala, and why the Rebbe was Megala to Yolos, we don't know. But the Rebbe didn't keep it a secret by the fact that he asked my father if Yolos told him anything. And I want to make reference to a Maimer that's a Mugadik Maimer that the Rebbe said in Chof Ches Sivan Beis, Va'avdi David Nossi Aleim. Over there, the whole Maimer, Retzach wegen the Maila from Yisod, Yosef and Yehuda, Yisod, and Malchus. But the whole Nekuda of the Maimer is how Malchus actually brings an Aliyah to Yisod, which is from not only from Chitzenis HaKeser, but from Pnimis HaKeser. Because Malchus, the line to the Hechster, is cannot aroplos into the Nidiriste. So as much as Malchus is Makabel from Yisod, Malchus accomplishes an Aliyah in Yisod even greater than before, even on its own, greater than it has on its own. We don't understand the whole relationship between the Rebbe and the Frierdiker Rebbe. What we do know is that the ganze Inyan from the Rebbe Dachtenim, mit dem ganzen Stel, the way it was by the Rebbe was totally different and much deeper than any of the previous generations. So I want to finish with one more Nukuda, which Rabbi Shapiro said that he was taking the liberty to say something which he didn't hear the Fedish and so the Skabel Givonen. So I always had a shaila that bothered me tremendously, and that was in the early years the Rebbe used to take people on Yechidus 3 times a week. It was a davar kavod, except if it was in Elul or other times when it was busy. But that was the klal. Later, the Rebbe changed that Yechidus was twice a week, right? Sunday and Thursday. And if you remember, by the end of Lamed Aleph, Lamed Hey, the Rebbe changed the whole thing. That until then, anyone that had Yom Holedus was able to go in, and the Rebbe said that he's stopping it. And there were a variety of reasons why it was stopped. Could be people didn't go in with Pnimius the way they should. There was also the in that there were so many people that wanted to have Yechidus with the Rebbe. And the Rebbe gave a bracha klolis Yemel Shabbos Bereishis, and he wanted everybody to be part of the bracha. And later he spoke, when people were still trying to get in, that he says that if you're trying to get in, you're taking yourself out from that bracha klolis that happened. I remember one time by Maidiv, upstairs in the Zal, in the Lameds, there was a Yid right after Maidiv that he stopped the Rebbe. And he said to the Rebbe, Ich will reingehen auf Yechidus. And the Rebbe turned around and said, Azay vil eren, Azay vil eren. The Rebbe pointed on everybody. Azay vil reingehen auf Yechidus. And Lepoel, the Rebbe said that he should write a letter. In fact, there was some people that got answers that Mistama Noyeg Kanash Lachrena Shenichnosim li Yechidus be'es ha'isvadus. So given azach anol sheines. And then in Tafshin Memvov, all of a sudden, there was a shinui in the Anhog of the Rebbe. We know how busy the Rebbe was, because we know that when the Rebbe went to camp 3 times, and there was a woman that wrote to the Rebbe asking why the Rebbe stopped, because it was such a lift that the Rebbe gave to everybody when the Rebbe would come to camp. And the Rebbe said he's still trying to make up time lost from the travel back and forth. So B'meili is not going. So we know by the Rebbe every minute was Uizgi Cheshbon. And in Tavshim Memvava, the Rebbe only gave an anayim minig. One week the Rebbe came out with a bag of nickels and started giving out nickels to everybody that was there. And then after that, the Rebbe started to say that from Dalan. And as we know that when people would come before the Rebbe on a Sunday, they had a chance even to ask a question. Mit sie nicht gestuckt, wie sie gewähren andere Zeiten. And the Rebbe later explained it by the famous Farbrengen Yud Beis Sivan that the union of Zuntik is the union for Chesed. So therefore, there's the union of giving of Chesed and all of that. But the question is, here the Rebbe's time is so precious, and the Rebbe himself is making the effort to see every person, jeder ein of us will zugehen als ein wie ein Melech, nicht basode, nor in dem Armein an Melech allein, and the Rebbe engages with them and gives them brachas and gives them advice. And the mofsim was in the given by the Dolan is ainless shire. My father told me that it's pushed similar to the way it was the Erste Jordan. Mofsim was gewalget einer noch im Zweiten. But the Rebbe wanted to see every person. Is by mir geworden a shtikel machshove that, as it was said before, and that was the sikha that was given over very nicely by Rabbi Kaplan, the union from the Daitcha, that the Rebbe wanted that jeder einer in the Deira Shvi should be a chelik of the mission of the Deira Shvi, as we see it in the first Maimer, in the Deira Shvi. And this union of the Deira Shvi was that the Rebbe wanted to empower each and every person by giving them the time, not just by listening to sichos by the Farbrengen. And since they couldn't go into Yichidus because it was impossible, so the Rebbe Pashat imbued them and injected them with that energy. I'll share one other story that I heard from my father, and with that I'll finish. He told me that the Mamish in the first years, the Rebbe called him in, and I think Shalom Mendel Simpson was there as well, but I think it was mainly to him the instruction. And he said that he once saw by the Frierdiker Rebbe that the Frierdiker Rebbe would stop everything that he's doing, and he would open up his top shiflot, which was the drawer, and he would take out some letters that sat there for years that he got from Chassidim. And he would look at the letter and he would concentrate on the names in the letter and meditate on them ki'ilu, and then he would put it back and continue working. So the Rebbe said that he was wondering, what's this anhaga? The Frierdiker Rebbe is so busy, why is he reading old letters? So he says that the Frierdiker Rebbe noticed it, and the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I had the same question about my father. So my father told me, he said that Rebbe Rashab told him that when he feels a dark cloud hovering over one of his mukurovim of one of his chassidim, which that person doesn't even know that there's a dark cloud over them, so he intervenes and interjects to be mispalo. And how is he mispalo? By pulling out a zettel that they wrote before, and then he was misboinen in their names. But Mela, the clouds are dispersed. The Rebbe says, so what I want is the Mazolmachen index card. The young generation doesn't know what index cards are, but there were index cards like in an envelope box, that it should be according to the Aleph base, that jeder eine beschreibt a Brief zu mir, soll man abschreiben sein Namen mit der Bnei Beshpachte, soll sein a Kartfel bei jeder Mishpache. And when Sefil Tzachon soll man machen noch eine. And the Rebbe would keep it on the file cabinet next to him, where he would sit by Yechidus. As you know, the Rebbe didn't sit where he sat by Yechidus. The Rebbe didn't sit Bechlal over there. When the Rebbe worked, the Rebbe sat on the side of the desk. It was only by Yechidus, or when the Rebbe would receive people, that he would sit by that place. In fact, my father once told me that it was his birthday, and he was going to go into Yechidus at night, and all of a sudden, the Rebbe becomes very serious, and he says, "Doch dein Yemuledes, mistama trachst an Angeheinheit benacht auf Yechidus." He said, "Yes." He says, "Hast du dem Zettel?" He says, "Yeah, ich habe dem Zettel." So the Rebbe said, "Soll man dann eingehen auf Yechidus jetzt?" The Rebbe picked himself up from the side and sat by his place where he sat by Yechidus. He gave tzedakah like he would do before Yechidus, and his whole face changed. And it was the board, and he was very serious. He took the zettel and he read it, and then after he gave the bracha, he stood up and he went back to the other side. But if you would look at the place where the Rebbe sat, by the file cabinet, that's where they had these tzetlachim. Mizman, the Rebbe would get up and pull out an index card and study it, and then put it back. And the shaila is, by the Frierdiker Rebbe, by the Rebbe Rashab, Ikke given the brief from the Mukurovim, those that were very close. By the Rebbe, anyone that had a shaykhus to the Rebbe, anyone that wrote a zettel, their name was there. And this is the inyan of the Deira Shvi, because the Deira Shvi, the Rebbe wanted each and every one of us to be connected, that each and every one of us has to carry out the mission. Each and every one of us, this is what it says, I say, that you become the Rebbe's agent in order to be able to do what the Rebbe wants. And that was through the Rebbe empowering us, beruchnis, begashnis, and giving us brachas and giving us dalos. So the Rebbe should help uns, soll keine Mechaber sein, der Kavone, soll ausführen, was der Rebbe will. Und die Iker soll sein, die ist Galus, und soll sein Bias HaMashiach, und soll keine sein, noch Gimmel Tammuz zusammen mit der Rebbe. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Amen. L'chaim, l'chaim. Shkech, Rabbi Groner. Some beautiful stories. I just, as you were talking, you reminded me the Sikha, the Parsh of in Sefer HaSichas Tavshin Nun Aleph. It's Shabbos Parshas Keirach, which was Gimmel Tammuz, and I think there's another. I think maybe it's from Thursday. And the Rebbe talks about the Gimmel Tammuz, the Geula of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he asks why, if there was already such a nace, why couldn't there just be a complete nace and there should be a total Geula? And the Rebbe says you can ask the same question on the story of with Yeshua bin Nun with Shemesh Begivin Doim. That why did the sun stopped, but still Yeshua and the people still had to fight the war against Yiddishkeit. And the Rebbe goes into what happened exactly, and I don't know the science, so I don't know what the Rebbe was asking, if the sun stopped or the whole Marachis Teva, if the whole galaxy stopped. And the difference is, how much did the Teva change? How much was nature affected? And the Rebbe says you could ask the same question about the Parach Mata Aaron in Parshas Keirach, when the Aaron's staff, when it grows almonds, it says I know I don't have the pasuk exactly, but there was a whole process. It wasn't just in a second. There was almonds appeared, and the nekuda that the Rebbe answers to all of them is that what the Eibishter wants is that it should be in derech hateva. That Take, the Olam has to know that Aaron was chosen by the Eibishter, but once that comes into the world, first it has to sprout, and then there has to be a flower, a seed, and a flower, and then it could become a shkedim. U'kumokin v'shemesh begivin doim, that the Mulchama had to be fought by Yeshua and by the people. There's no uftu if it's not what the Eibishter needs from us for the Eibishter to fight the war. And the Rebbe says, al derech zeh, you could say with regards to the Gimmel Tammuz of Shnas Tov Reish Pei Zayin, that it was taka neisha l'maylim min hateva, and as I think you mentioned, that in a way, or maybe someone else mentioned, the way Gimmel Tammuz is maybe even a bigger nace, but it had to come down in derech hateva, that even the soine of that time should recognize that there has to be not a inyan shel hepech hachayim, and not even kastrama, and everything after that. And the Rebbe says that even after that, it wasn't totally done yet. It took many years until that shilton came down. The Rebbe points out in that tkufa that they were considering to change the name of Leningrad back to Peterburg, and that was another shlav in even in Teva, recognizing that the regime that put the Frierdiker Rebbe in jail was becoming bottle. But there's a very powerful message, and that is that milamaila, a lot of things could happen, and and specifically talking to us in the tkufa post the revelation of Chof Ches Sivan, which as we spoke Baruch is in of the Daitecha, and it has been spoken at other farbrengens from this platform, that Ula Yeshleimar, that this is why the Rebbe waited, so to speak, for the Chassidim to uncover Chof Ches Sivan, so that it should be a union of the Daitecha. So it's very beautiful the way you laid it out, that the Rebbe empowered the Chassidim, and whether we understand it b'sichleinu hadal, but we find ourselves in a time where we've been empowered in a certain sense more than ever before, where we have to operate in the Eifin of the Daitecha, and we have to do things, obviously, kiritzoinoi, as mentioned before, but it has to go through the Teva, it has to through us, through our Aveda. When the Rebbe said, Tut al Tzfas Yirkent, The Rebbe was including us and in this mission of bringing Mashiach. As we stand between Chof Ches Sivan and Gimmel Tammuz, it's a time, as you're saying, to remind us of our responsibility to the Rebbe and to each other and to the Elam Hazah Gashmi, to America, to the Tachten, Shein Tachten Lamata Imenu, and to all of the other countries that received their shluchim and their Yiddishkeit from the foundation of America. That we should do our part on the Rebbe's own help, and we should be able to do so, and we should be matzliach to do the shlichus that the Rebbe gave us, and to bring the Shechina Lamata Ba'aretz.
Amen.
L'chaim, l'chaim. On that note, on the note of talking a little bit about how Chof Ches Sivan became a yontif, so I guess I'm a little bit. By the time I came around, Chof Ches Sivan was already a yontif. I mean, I do remember the chalukah of the kibbutz. I wasn't in New York, unfortunately, but I remember it happening. But by then, Chof Ches Sivan was already a yom habayit. It was already a yontif. But it took many years from when the Rebbe came to America until it became known what the date was, and even after that, it took some time, and it took the efforts of the Bachrim to turn it into the Yom Tov that it became, until the Rebbe was mekabelit, and the Rebbe made it the Yom Tov that it is. So to go back a little bit to that tkufa, the tkufa of the mems, I will pass on the microphone to Rabbi Yossi Katzman, who was there at the time, to Farbrengen with us a little bit, take us back, and what is the message of Chof Ches Sivan as Bayamim Haim Ubizman Hazeh. Rabbi Katzman, l'chaim. Oh, l'chaim, l'chaim.
My whole presence here is a mitzvah vase. I have no idea why I'm here. You have the best people over. Okay, I was there. That's true. So you know what? I will start. Maybe it's a little comedic. First of all, let me say, Rabbi Shapiro mentioned earlier about Mispar Pei Hey. So I believe in the whole discussions in preparation for Chof Ches Sivan, they brought a sikha from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe addresses the Mispar Pei Hey, and he says Mispar Pei Hey is Tachlis Hateva Chesed, because Pei Hey is Bigematria 5 times Tov. So we have an inyan of the Mispar Pei Hey, und die Mekubolim, mit die Chokrim, und schon der ergänzende Minyan, dann noch Chochem wie ich kam heid. Aber das ist doch Tachlis Hateva Chesed. Tachlis Hateva Chesed, the Chesed of the Eibishter to us, and the Chesed that the Rebbe was mezake us. I'll mention a little my Hergeshim later, but das is der Mispar Pei Hey dem Yor. On a comedic note, there's the Yodua B'negei Chai Elul, that Chai Elul was known by Chassidim, like quietly. There's even a mention somewhere that Chassidim at one point wanted to be Kevei Yom Tev, but they said, who are we to be Kevei Yom Tev? Allein macht man nicht Yom Tevim, until the Friedrich Rebbe and Tovshin Gimmel was Megala, the minion from Gut Yom Tev, mit Chai Elul, and since then it became a Meid Kavua. Al derech zeh mit Chof Ches Sivan. It may sound today it sounds funny, but B'shaite in Tovshin Mem Hey, my daughter was born Sunday night, Oir l'Chof Ches Sivan. I came in the morning, and being that I'm a Kohen, I was able to get an aliyah, and I gave a name, and the name I gave Chane. After davening, the Bochrim came to me, and they asked me, did you name her because of the day? Ich guck sie an, was for a day? What are you talking about? I had no idea. Der Rebbe hat zugetroffen, sie gewinnen bepasst to geben Chane, aber especially in my family, when my sister is the first Chane, so Chane is a very dear name to us. The next year, when they already made the big Farbrengen, habe ich weiter sicher gewesen, der Rebbe hat mich mechaber gewinnt, zu Chof Ches Sivan. I had a Wachnacht. When there was Motze Shabbos, the Farbrengen of Chof Ches Sivan, I had a Wachnacht. Habe ich gedacht, sein Uf, sei, bin ich gewesen beim Farbrengen. Al Kaponim, this is like my introduction. Then I heard, as the Bochrim, Rabbi Greenberg loves to repeat the story, how Rabbi Yosef Solomon, she mentioned his name, he was nifter not too long ago. He had a koch in Sforim. He was a very big Sforim person. So when the Igros Kodesh came out, we used to read it. Mit ist Tage geleint, aber geleint, we read it. So you overlooked, you didn't necessarily pay attention. But he paid attention, and he came running to 770. He was pung there from Etzro. And he shows them the Igros Kodesh that the Frierdiker Rebbe writes that it's the day the Rebbe came. Midaf Farbrengen, midaf machen. And again, in the style, as they relate, the Bochrim were still scared. Who are we to be Keveya? And they had a little Farbrengen. They had a Farbrengen in the Cheder Sheni upstairs. Until next year, at Mishim Bashlos Macha Aggressor and Tumul. And there, the Rebbe was Keveya when the hachroza was made, and the Rebbe corrected Ish Ubeise. Now, before I get to elaborate on that Nakuda, there is something that is very fascinating. We can see the Frierdiker Rebbe's Ave to the Rebbe is unbelievable. And just a few pointers where the Frierdiker Rebbe addressed, he came to America, Achrish al Pesach, he was in Lakewood, and then the Frierdiker Rebbe said that he has in mind to gather together Minhogi Chabad and make a Sefer Minhogim and a Chok L'Chsidei Chabad mit Minhogi Chabad Pisgomim Sipurim K'tzorim. Azalikut could be only someone who's a Pnimi Omuk Mesuder V'Yisedi Im Das Rechova V'Amuka. Something of exceptional qualities. And then he says, and I can rely that with the Eibishter's help, as the Eibishter helps me, in the end, I will be able to succeed in this as well. So this was like a monumental task, the Rebbe says, which it's like a dream that I can't see it happen, but it'll happen. Then when our Rebbe came, of course it wasn't immediately, but then, Tov Shin Gimel on Chof Kislev, the Frierdiker Rebbe writes a letter to Chasni, Yakiri, Geze Tarshishim, Ravagon, Vosik V'chosdi Shirei Elikim, his name Shlita. And there, you say the Geras HaKedesh, Ayutas Kislev is Chag HaChagim, so we start Rosh Hashanah L'Chsidus, we're starting our own calendar. And he's giving him the task of putting together a Loach Eir Zorua L'Chsidei Chabad. And from this came the Hayem Yem. So the Rebbe was looking forward, waiting for the Rebbe. Besides for the personal love, there was someone so special, and he couldn't wait. And then we find that the Rebbe on Shavuos, the Frierdiker Rebbe, said, "Es kommt a greiser Gast." And then shortly before the Rebbe came, the Rebbe said, Mein junger Edim, mein jüngerer Edim wird kommen, bin ich dem Nigen singen, dem Ramichels Lotschevers Nigen. There were so many references. You can see the yearning, the benkenish. He's waiting for the Rebbe. So to go back to the whole idea of what happened when the Rebbe came. When the Rebbe came, as we have in the Kuntres Chof Ches Sivan, which in itself was incredible, that the Rebbe accepted it, agreed to it, not only agreed to it, but he himself distributed this Kevitz Kuntres Chof Ches Sivan. And in it, what does it say? That when the Rebbe came, the Friedrich Rebbe was mamane him on the three major meizdas, and his chilo tnufa chadosha b'fotzas hamayonis. So we find the Rebbe is referring to, over the years, the Rebbe is referring to Chof Ches Sivan, just short. Was Chof Ches Sivan? Keyach in Sivan. Gives a keyach in dem inye von Matan Torah. What is Chof Ches Sivan, the Rebbe says? And the Rebbe uses the words mitzvahs hayem. Mitzvahs hayem is milui hashlichas de yofutzu meinesecha Matan Torah in Chatzikadar Atachten. This is what this defines the day. Hafotzas hamayonis in Chatzikadar Atachten. And this comes together with what Rabbi Shapiro referred to earlier, the michtav of the Friedrich Rebbe zum Rebbe, which is incidentally the Hayem Yem of Untitled Tammuz, where he talks about America. So the Friedrich Rebbe writes to Chasni Akiri, you asked why, if it's true that there was no Matan Torah, and to which he refers to the drush of the Alter Rebbe, why people are not falling down in America. And he's masber mit igulim, mit yesher. So in yesher, the Rebbe uses the word, it's true, there was no gilui of Matan Torah. Aber Matan Torah, for sure there was. So gilui from Matan Torah in yesher was not in America. And this was accomplished and established, obviously, first when the Friedrich Rebbe came to America in Tessel the Shene, aber lepeil hat sich das durchgeführt durch Chof Ches Sivan, the Rebbe's taking over and leading the Meizdes in America. And from that, geworden der Gilui von Matan Torah. And here comes my hergesh. Ich will zugeben a hergesh that really is very much on my mind. It's in Yomim von Achone zu Gimmel Tammuz. So I had a fascinating experience that reinforced it last week. We had in the Yem Yem of Chof Sivan, where the Rebbe talks about the first Yichidus of a Chassid. This is how the Rebbe guided him for life. I got an amazing phone call from a young man, a shliach. He was born in Shliches. Und hat Yom Huledes this day, he says, Chof Sivan. And my question to you is, when is my Yom Huledes? When is considered my Yichidus? Now, the question itself is mind-blowing. Was heißt mind-blowing? It is so, for someone who was Zeiche, to be what they call the Shneis Ha'ed, whatever you want to call it. I grew up by the Rebbe, and I was Zeiche to Yichidus and Farbrengens, and I was here all the years. To hear a kid who tells me I was 3 months old the first time I came to the Rebbe, Sukkot Tov Shin Nun Aleph. So he wants to know, where is his Yichidus? Where is his first time coming to the Rebbe, his Yom Huledes? That in itself, just the question is genug to inspire you. But what I was thinking, this is what comes in, what the Rebbe says. There is the gilui of Matan Torah. We are looking for giluim. We are human beings, we are looking for giluim. Gimmel Tammuz took us to a different place. It's L'chure, no Giluim. I believe that now starts the real Giluim, to see such in your light. to see such bochrim. This is the emissary Gilui. What's his Gilui? The Rebbe told us many times in the last year, we should open our eyes and we can see Moshiach. What's the taich? The psahokas pokas da. Wie gefindt sich in Golis? What's he see Moshiach? But when you learn Chassidus and you know that the Gilui of Moshiach, what's the taich? She's Gilui ha'etzem. Oder the Lashon from Samachvov, Gilui helem ha'atzmi. So you are looking forward to such Giluyim, but the Giluyim of Etzem. The Rebbe says you can open your eyes and you will see Gilui ha'etzem today. To see a younger man of this generation, Anshliches, and younger ones, Bochrim, and they are yearning. It's a Gilui ha'etzem, their hachlatos etzem be'etzem, which is what Yiddishkeit is. The connection of the etzem of a bocher and a younger man mit den Rebben, das ist meire meiroim, dik das ist mei ein, vedugme, vachone, zu dem Gilui von Moshiach. And just as a biur, there's a letter from the Mittler Rebbe, and on a similar note, also from our Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe wrote to Chassidim a year after Chavdala Teves, a very sharp letter, a Gidze Ibn Kop, that since the Stalkas, you've lost your way. Ois Chassidim. And the reason for it is, the Mittler Rebbe says, because you don't come to the Rebbe. You don't see the Rebbe. Since you don't want to come, I will go to you. Because it's impossible to be a Chassid if you don't see a Gashmiz Rebbe. Our Rebbe wrote in a letter to a supporter of Soviet Jews, it was in Tovshin Lamed about, and he wrote him a letter in English, and he thanks him very much for supporting the Soviet Jews, and he highlights what's their quality. It's already several decades that they have no manhig, and still they're holding on. Chassidim in Russia, Siddha Rebbe Baruch Hashem, and he was working with them. The Rebbe says, Bepeil, you need to see the Rebbe Begashmias. And if you don't see him Begashmias, it doesn't work. The ingredients don't add up. And here we see Mamish, because those ingredients are only Giluim. But when you talk about Etzem, it couldn't be in the past, but it is now. This is what Gimmel Tammuz takes us to see the Gilui HaEtzem, especially with the young Jungelite and Bochrim, with the Meredike Hiskashrus. So it inspires me, and I hope this will keep us going. This should keep us going. Posha to be Zeicher, and this should be the Gilui Helem Atzmi, as the Rebbe says in another Maimer, Gilui Helem Atzmi, and then there's Gilui Ha'atzmi. Wir soll Zeicher sein zu Gilui Ha'atzmi, noch far Gimmel Tammuz, l'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim. Shkoyach Rabbi Katzman. Shkoyach with those beautiful words. Side the Hergeshim. And we hope that the Giluyim that we're seeing now should be the Hachana Kreva to the ultimate Giluy and the clearest Giluy. By the way, in the Sicha of Tes Adar Tavshanun, in the Mugadika Sicha, the Lashon is Big Giluy. Yadua Pisgam, Shebechatzi Kader Atachten Lehoya Matentera Begilui. So in case you need a backup to what you were saying, Azay State Klar.
Oh, it does say in the letter of the Friedrich Rebbe, it says that
it wasn't Begilui.
I took it from there.
Yeah, okay. So Azay, when it's quoted in the Mugadik Sikha, it's written that way as well, and the B'chalal in the Tkufa of Deir Hashvi, the idea of bringing the Shechina Lamata is on a whole nother level, and Abamela, as the time goes on, we go further and further into the chutzah. I just wanted to mention, as you were speaking about the tkufa of the tkufa that we are in now, and the tkufa of Hiskashrus. It's so interesting that in the Sikha of Tes Adar Tavshinun, which is in Parshas Tetzava, the Rebbe gives over there, connects the whole inyan of bringing Matan Torah into Chatzi Kader Atachten, and he connects it with the inyan of Ata Tetzava. And it's interesting that the Oisias are a little bit different than the classic V'ata Tetzava Ma'amorim that are more similar to the V'ata Tetzava that was distributed by the Rebbe in Tavshin Beis. But the Kitzur, the Rebbe over there says that the Ata refers to the Mehuscha V'atzmuscha of Moshe, and V'ata Tetzava is B'nai Yisrael, that Moshe is Mitzave U'Mechaber, the Eibishter, the Yidden with the Eibishter. And then the Rebbe brings the idea of Ner Tamid and Me'erev Ad Beker. That Ner Tamid is the inyan of L'mayla Mishinuyim. It's Tamid. Masha'enkin Erev Ad Beker highlights the idea of Shinuyim. And how you mechaber a L'mayla Mishinuyim with Shinuyim, that's Bekeach HaAtzmus. The Keach of the Atzmus of Moshe. And the Rebbe says over there, through Limud HaTorah, which is in Yoni Shal Moshe, you're able to bring the V'gilui that's higher than Shinuyim into a concept of Shinuyim. So I just, I'm piggybacking off of your words that we're in a time of Shinuyim. It's Erev this Baker. But B'shas, we have the connection of Ata Tetzaveh, is Yemel, that even in the man of Shinuyim, there could be a inyan of a Ner Tamid. And the Rebbe says that the pasuk ends, Chukas Elam l'derei seichem. So Chukas Elam, the Rebbe teaches this inyan of Chakika. That Chakika, al derech hayadua be'esis Chakika, that it becomes Chadim ha'etzem, and because it becomes one, the Mele is l'derei seichem, it's Kavua and it's Nitzchi l'derei seichem. So b'chlal the word, especially if we tie l'derei seichem on a very balabatish way, that we're referring to the children and the grandchildren that are being born today. And b'shas we have the V'ata Tetzava, b'shas we have the kesher with the Atzmus and Mehus of Moshe, is a Mele, is even in a time of Erev and a time that it's Erev and Beker, we have a Ner Tamid, and the Ner Tamid is higher than Shinuyim, and it's Chukas Elan l'derei seichem, that it's even of Chakika, even in the Deiris. He says even in the children that are born afterwards, that are born in the Erev and Beker, the Ner Tamid is still there, and an infant of Chakika. Just want to mention on a practical note is that we're in the Yavim Asmuchim to Gimmel Tammuz. So Mitzvah Shem, we're hoping that the Farbrengen of Gimmel Tammuz will be with the Rebbe together in 770 Beis Chayenu in Yerushalayim Irakedesh. But yes, that you have to also do Al Derech HaTeva. So the Agudas Chassidim Chabad have arranged a Farbrengen that will take place in Kansiva Hashem Esabracha in the Beis Rivka, and the Eilim is invited. And also the Vaad Or Vechom has been publishing pninim, short excerpts of sichos on a daily basis, which you can get and as part of your hachana for Gimmel Tammuz. That was just a commercial break in the middle of the Farbrengen, in case the Eilim is not saying enough l'chaim. We fell into the commercial break. Back to the Farbrengen, we know that there's a kesher meyuchad between Chof Ches Sivan and Eretz Yisrael, as the Rebbe explains in the Farbrengen of Shlach Tavshin Tes, that the first Aveda of Diri B'Tachtenim was with the entry of Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. And it actually takes place, when Moshe sends the Meraglim on Chof Ches Sivan, the day after Chof Ches Sivan, as the Rebbe explains, that only after you have the Keach of Chof Ches Sivan, the Keach of Yarchet Lisai, the Keach of Matan Torah, the way it is in Chof Ches Sivan, only then could you start the Aveda of sending Meraglim, which is the beginning of the Aveda of going into the world, into the Eretz, and to work the Eretz in an Eifon of Diri B'Tachtenim. Mela, for our next and final formal speaker, the Farbrengen will continue afterwards, but the speaker that had his picture in the circles on the flyer, we have a grus from Arseinu Akdesha, from Rabbi Asi Spiegel, who will farbrengen with us and share with us, give us a grus from the perspective of Eretz Yisrael, even though you're not physically in the Chatzi Kader Atachten, but you were sent to where you are from the Chatzi Kader Atachten. Maybe you'll be Mekasher, Maila, and Mata, and farbrengen with us. Reb Asi, Bevakasha, first to please say L'chaim, L'chaim, L'chaim. And the Olam should say L'chaim, come over and Pashut.
L'chaim, L'chaim. I'm actually, at the moment, I am in Chatzi Kader Atachten. But I'm not usually there, so this is going to be regards from Chatzi Kader Alien, I guess. So everybody mentioned the 85 years, and Bichlal, this year is merube the numbers, 50 years for that, 50 years for that. Now we have 85, and I listened a little bit to whatever was said about 85, but I think the most simple meaning is it's the letters, the actual letters, and that's pei hey. And pei hey, we know, is a mouth, it's a peh. And I think that, if we talk about Chof Ches Sivan in practical terms, after we process all the inner meaning of everything, the Rebbe coming to America, and the famous siches, I think that in practical terms, and I'm highlighting this point particularly because I think it's relating to Eretz HaKodesh and everything that we're experiencing in the world right now, is that up until the Rebbe's coming to America and everything that followed, up until that time in history, I think most of the Jewish people, except for the Rabbi and Sienu, were very afraid when they were speaking to Goyim, to basically, first of all, in private conversations, there was like a fear, certain, territories that Jews did not feel comfortable speaking about with non-Jews, and how much more so on a, leadership, government level, and in those areas, for sure, Jews always dealt with the Goyim, but always there was this inner fear and suspicion that if we're going to speak too strongly about our Yiddishkeit, this will result in some sort of harm, chas v'sholem. And like I said, we know from Rabbi and Sienu the stories of the Rabbi, his government, but Stam Poshet Yidden, this wasn't a common feature of American life to speak, really honestly and directly and forward, kamuvan, in a respectful way, but laying, the Yiddish belief system and our value system and our whatever words you want to use. We all know that this is a big chiddush of the Rebbe that I personally experienced myself many times. Everybody has their own stories. That idea that the Rebbe put in our minds, that be'etzem, the more comfortable we are going to be with presenting our Yiddishkeit in the public arena, in a mechubedik way, in a respectful way, in a strong way, the more we'll do that, the more respect we're going to get from the people around us. We all know that even today, not so long ago, other Yidden in this country were terrified by this type of philosophy and this type of thinking. It sounded a bit too much, and the Rebbe through the Shluchim training us, each one in their own place, to walk into the offices and to basically say, good morning, I'm the rabbi from the community, I need to put a menorah over here, and it's a blessing for the town, and just the whole tzugang that we're comfortable about being Yidden, So that whole thing, it would be right to say, obviously, Chof Ches Sivan, Chatzi Kader Atachten, this is the whole idea that, we bring Chassidus and the Torah of Rabbi and Sienu and Torah Semes to the shore of the United States, and everything that the Rebbe develops here with the Shluchim. But like I said, still, I guess to say it the right way, I think we see that there's a bit of a challenge going on in Eretz Yisrael in this manner, and I'm saying it mildly, because I mean we zijn een dort of Chassidim, and we all know the Rebbe's message that we should say that Eretz Yisrael is ours for only one reason, because the Rebbe said so in the Torah, and all the predictions that the Rebbe shared with us, unfortunately, what is to come if we're not going to take this route, and I would say with all the amazing support that we are supporting, with Israel and whatever is going on over there, and the Jewish people and the whole thing that's going on. Perhaps it's time we open our mouth more, take the koyach of Chof Ches Sivan to inspire ourselves and our colleagues in Eretz Yisrael and the Yidden around the world to be comfortable already with this idea that we should be the peh to say to the world that Eretz Yisrael belongs to Am Yisrael, like the Rebbe told us to say, and we all know that this is the way to improve our situation. So that's just like a general Shalom Aleichem from Eretz Yisrael. But I want to add another point in that regard. I listened before to Rabbi Shapiro, and he was saying the whole idea about the Rebbe and the similarities of the Rebbe with the Baal Shem Tov. I think it's a common idea that people think about. That there's a famous letter that the Rebbe writes to the Frierdiker Rebbe. One of the contrasts, also it says over the Meine Lechot Mechasonov, and it's the Rebbe that the Rebbe is asking over there, saying it's a limud Chassidus, a Torah Chassidus. The Rebbe is asking over there, why do we say that we are the Mamshichim from Baal Shem Tov, where apparently, seemingly, the Polish Chassidim and the Chassidus HaKlalis, it looks as if they are doing more the Baal Shem Tov's way, and then the Frierdiker Rebbe writes the whole contrast in Limud Chassidus. So, in that regard, I want to add a point. It's a little bit of a twist. This year is also 60 years. Said before, there's different years this year. The base psukim and mifzoim and all kinds of things. One of the things we have also is we already noted it before in the winter that this is 60 years since the Rebbe said the Sicha of Inyono Shel Teras Chassidus. The Sicha was said in Tzfas Kesef Tov Shel Chavov, and then probably took a few years till it became published in the Sicha, and later it became in Sefer Archim, but we all know it. Inyono Shel Teras Chassidus is a famous contrast of the Rebbe, and it's very, very important. There's some fundamental ideas over there. Not here to review it right now, but I guess since I'm hanging out a little bit by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, also I just say that one of the wildest ideas from Toras Rabbeinu is in Inyono Shel Teras Chassidus. Probably more than one idea, but one of the wildest ideas is that we have this famous expression in the Zohar where it talks about Rosin Deoraisa and Rosin Deoraisa. This is, I'm saying, like a little bit of a Dvar Malchus from the Rebbe. So you ask anybody, it's a famous Zohar brought in Chassidus many times. Ask anybody what's Rosin Deoraisa and what's Rosin Deoraisa. So anybody who didn't learn in Yana would say that this is secrets of the Torah and this is secrets of the Torah. And what is Rosin Deoraisa? I don't know, something deeper in Kabbalah. I don't know. But the Rebbe says that Rosin is Teras Chassidus. So Meferish Inyono Shel Teras Chassidus, that Rosin is Kabbalah. And Rosin is Chassidus, which is basically higher than Kabbalah. This is like a pretty radical idea. But this is, I'm saying in parentheses, but in the beginning of the contrast, right in the beginning, the Rebbe said the famous thing that what is the Chidush of Teras Chassidus? So there's several biurim. The first biur is very well-known saying that during the Baal Shem Tov's time, and like Rabbi Shapiro also mentioned it, during the Baal Shem Tov's time, the Jewish world was in the matzah of fainting, salfus. The day Gilo Baal Shem Tov Teras Chassidus, the world was awakened from the faint, as is known that when somebody is fainting, you say their name. The Baal Shem Tov's name is Yisroel. I was thinking, that we all know this saying, it's very, very famous, but if you want to apply it to our matzah right now is that the Jewish people's story has been, taken hostage, for better or for worse, by Israel. Israel is right now, I mean, the country Israel, right? Israel. Israel is basically playing the game right now. Israel is the story of the Jewish people, and we're all navigating with it to the right, to the left. We all being carried with the story of Israel. Unfortunately, I mean, we all want to say always good things, obviously, but we all know what's going on in the world, and we're seeing that this Israel situation is going pretty much to nowhere under the kilometers an hour. I mean, it's just like what is going on in Israel exactly. So to say something inspiring and good is what Israel needs is Israel. We need to change the name Israel to the Baal Shem Tov. Israel is basically in a matzav of Isalfus. Israel is disoriented. People, are losing their minds over there. I mean, we all witness miracles and we're all happy, besimcha. But listen, the matzav it's a great Meshuggah Dortmund. And the only trufa, the only way is the Rebbe's way. And the Rebbe's way is the Baal Shem Tov's way. So Israel, to wake up the Jewish people from the fainting, basically we need Israel, we need the Rebbe, we need the Baal Shem Tov. And I guess, on another practical note, this year is also, and for that, like I said before, this is, I think it's very related to Chof Ches Sivan, because that's the Indian, that we take the Rebbe's Shitta, takes over everybody else's ideas. This is what we need. Chof Ches Sivan. We need the Rebbe's, just like in America. So, by the way, another thing that is very, very important that I'm noticing that in Eretz Yisrael, and a lot of people, when they speak about what's going on in the world, talk about people on the news, on the podcasting, all the dankers, it become a common, I don't know, you probably know it too, but it's become a common thing for Israelis to give up on world Jewry, Chas v'Sholem, to say, yeah, there's anti-Semitism, everybody should go to Israel. And it's become a common voice that people are just like ready to write off everybody else. You should all come to Israel. We all know this is mamish it's not the Rebbe's way. This is a fuch. The whole idea of Chof Ches Sivan is to elevate the world, to elevate the Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach and the Goyim. We don't have a vision for all the Goyim to burn in some crazy war. Ma pitom, We have defense wars. We have to defend ourselves, but we are not writing off the nations of the world. But people do it. Only people who are not aware of the Rebbe's message. So the Chof Ches Sivan, or the philosophy, the Zugang, all the ideas that we see in it, it's not enough that we see it. I mean, it's beautiful, Farbrengen, we see it. But mamish, the Jewish world needs this positive, inspiring message that whatever tension we're experiencing right now in the nations of the world, it's a workable thing. If we go with the Rebbe's way, we have a different way of looking at it. And I would say that also one last point is that there's another mivtza of this year. The year is not over yet. I mean, we are Chof Ches Sivan, we're getting ready for Gimmel Tammuz. There's a lot going on. But I noticed that in Chai Elul, Tov Shin Lamed Vov, the Rebbe called Mivtza Avas Yisrael. And Mivtza Avas Yisrael, obviously from the 10 Mivtzoim, this is like the last one. But even though it's the last one of the 10, when the Rebbe spoke about it, he said that all the Mivtzoim really are sitting on Mivtza Avas Yisrael. This is the Sheirish from all the Mivtzoim. Even though the Rebbe Keilu came to it at the end, not Keilu, this is what the Seder. But when he did come to it, he made it very, very clear that Avas Yisrael is the foundation of everything. And we all know also that this is mamish what the Jewish world needs now more than anything. More than anything, is just so somehow we could get along. And apparently, it's only through the Rebbe's Torah that we can actually reach this level of not agreeing, because loving doesn't mean that we agree about everything. But in the world we are at right now, once we don't agree, it's over. And the Rebbe is teaching us this radical social revolution that the Rebbe makes, that we are the ones who are carrying it, that we could actually do it. We could say to somebody, we have maybe different of opinion or different values or whatever it is, and nonetheless, we love you and we respect you and we will communicate with you. This particular way of behaving is needed like air, like fresh air for everybody. So Bezat Hashem, sitting together, making hachlatos, we should all become even more the peh of the Rebbe's mouthpiece, and take the job, like the Rebbe said in Boy and Beis. The Rebbe said beferish that the Rebbe's voice, for whatever technical reason, is not heard in the world. We are the ones to do it. So Mistome, 85 years, Chof Ches Sivan, the Al Inyonim of speaking the Rebbe's shittas in the world, in front of Goyim, in front of everybody that we have to talk to. Mistome, there's a whole nunis in Askoyach. So Hashem should bless us. The Rebbe will give us a bracha. Should all take the koiches of this auspicious time and bring Mashiach Teichuf Miyad Mamash. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim, Rebasi. Beautiful, beautiful. At the very end, you reference as boy, Tarshan on Beis, I think, Gimmel Shvat. I think that if we're talking about Peh, Frat, we're talking about Matan Torah. We're talking about it's Chedesh of Matan Torah, and Chof Ches Sivan is the Matan Torah is the koyach of Matan Torah to go into Tammuz, to go into the Mata, into a Mata Shein LaMata Himenu. So the Rebbe brings in the Sikha of Gimmel Shvat, he brings the pasuk Ozi Mali Schek Pinu. So is a reference. Alpipashtas is a reference to the Geula. So that in itself, the union of Peh, that it should be Ozi Mali Schek Pinu. But over there, the Rebbe, as you referenced very briefly, the Rebbe refers to the simcha that was by the Friedrich Rebbe, Ozi Mali Schek Pinu. His name was Yitzchak, and he says, despite the fact that there was a chayser, a kvad peh, a kvad lashon, there was a difficulty in the inyan adibur. Nevertheless, the Friedrich Rebbe was besimcha, and the Rebbe over there says that we have to be makabel on ourselves hachlatos and limud Torah. In other words, it was mentioned earlier. I think Rabbi Groner mentioned it. Maybe Rabbi Shapiro mentioned it from the Sikha of Gimmel Tammuz, the Likutei Sichas on Gimmel Tammuz, and also you see it. Yud Kislev, when there's a Sikha on Yud Beis Tammuz where the Rebbe asks why the Friedrich Rebbe needed to rely on the vort of the Baal Shem Tov and Hashgacha Pratis that he spoke about Rosh Hashanah in order to survive the Meiser, and the Rebbe sort of suggests various answers and slugs all of them up, that the Rebbe knows that it's from the Eibishter, and the Rebbe knows that it's for a purpose. And so what couldn't have been physical suffering, because by the Rebbe there's no such thing as physical suffering. And the ultimate answer is, by the Rebbe, is Kol Inyane is to teach Chassidus. The inyan of a Rebbe is to teach Chassidus. And even though the Friedrich Rebbe knew that there was going to be a positive outcome, an aliyah that comes after the Yerida, from Desveg, and the fact that in those few days, weeks, that the Friedrich Rebbe was in the Meiser, he was not able to teach Chassidus. That was a pain that, if not for the Vart of the Baal Shem Tov that he chazed, Rosh Hashanah, he wouldn't have survived it. Says in andere Werte, the inyan of a Rebbe is Peh, is to teach Torah. And as the Rebbe said, Gimmel Shvat is that it's a week before Yud Shvat, and it's a man that's kosher with the Friedrich Rebbe, and by the Friedrich Rebbe there was an inyan of a difficulty in the inyan adibur. We have to be mechazik binyan adibur. So if Eime Vilshein Darshan and Peh, and you mentioned Peh is as you said, we have to speak for the Rebbe. But if I may add that Pashit, how do we know what to say? How do we know how to speak? B'shem the Rebbe is the way to do so is to Pashit to Ozi Malis Chek Pinu, to fill our mouths with the Rebbe's Torah, kochen sich in the Rebbe's Torah. This is Matan Torah. Chof Ches Sivan is the Matan Torah of our generation. You know, there's Vav Sivan is Matan Torah. There's Lag Baimer is the Matan Torah of Pnimiyus HaTorah. There's Yud Kislev, which is Rosh Hashanah Chassidus. But the Matan Torah of our generation is Chof Ches Sivan. That's when it came down into our Mata. We're American kids. We're American boys. This is when there was a tnufa chadasha of bringing Torah into the world. And Mamela, on top of everything that everyone else has said and Farbrengen so beautifully about, if we're already mentioning Peh as Peh, as if you want to bring about the inyan von Ozi Malis Chek Pinu, we should be able to as so sein angefüllt in the inyan von Simcha, then it should be Pashat that as Gimmel Shvat. That is a week before Yud Shvat. Today we're a week before Gimmel Tammuz. and as we and it's la meiser to even say it, but we're going to say it anyway. That the emuna chazaka, that by the time it comes Gimmel Tammuz, the lev from Kal Yisrael, the Rebbe will be together with us, with his kinderlach, with his people, and we're going to hear Teireh Chadasha from the Rebbe, and we're going to be by the Rebbe's Farbrengen. But as a hachlatos is mentana the minyan apeh, and we should take the Matan Teireh of Chof Ches Sivan and the Rebbe's Teireh beikir, and we should kachzach in them. Our mouths should be filled with it, like Rabbi Kaplan mentioned, Vishinantam levanecha. When you stop someone when you get stopped in the street, someone says, "What's on the tip of your tongue?" So I've heard from Rabbi Azach that was melep dermit, and that's a peh. Das is a chassidische moil, and maybe it's just a helping that as mekacht sich in the Rebbe's Teireh, and we're meifitz the Teireh. The Matan Teireh, the Rebbe says it's the mitzvah hayem is the hafatze in efen of yafutzu, in efen of mayin esecha, in efen of chutza. It has to be the lashon in the sikha is a pizur she'ein pizur. There's no such. It's such a pizur. It's such a dissemination that there is no greater dissemination. And the mayon, the dover has to go as far as possible. And the chutza, there should be no mokim that is not permeated with the Rebbe's Teireh and with the Rebbe's message. And it's on us. It's on us. It's on us to live with it and to learn it and to allow it to penetrate into our hearts and into our minds. Ubefrat b'yamim elu, when the Rebbe says helfen, that we should take b'zeicha to sit by the Rebbe's Farbrengen, stand by the Rebbe's Farbrengen, b'mheida v'yameinu mamish, from Pashtet and the Rebbe zon zaristam from Galus. Instead of it being me'erev ad beker, it should be in ner tamid b'gali mamish ulamato me'asar tvachim. L'chaim. Officially, officially, there's a formal part of a Farbrengen, and there's also a Chassidim sitting together. So even though we checked off the checklist from deswegen as sofort erev Chof Ches Sivan und Chassidim Farbrengen zusammen, everyone should stay on, and we'll ask some of the mishtatvim in this Farbrengen if they could share some mahani mili malyasa. I can't. They zoomed me in, so I can't really see too many faces. But I saw Rabbi Yossi. I don't know if you were mishtativ, at what point you joined, but there were some very beautiful things, ideas Farbrengen shared, and maybe you could go from there and build the momentum. Share a few words in honor of Chof Ches Sivan.
I'm always in a Farbrengen, no matter if I was there begashmis or not. I'm always there. L'chaim asi, l'chaim, manishma asi, l'chaim. Just, I'm actually running to another Farbrengen, but just a few words. Shal zeh mit allem, das a Farbrengen für Shluchim. L'chaim asi, l'chaim. I don't know if anybody mentioned it, but there is a very interesting and amazing. First of all, I've done Shechiyonu v'Kimonu v'Giyonu lezman hazeh. As that talks, 40 years from when it's given the inner from the Pirsum Tov Shem Vov, and it's 85 years from the Rebbe come to America. It's poshet. I still remember the tshure that I had the schus to put together in the last minute on a Friday afternoon. I ran upstairs to Shigalov, and those who know Shigalov is not the easiest person to work with, and it's usually, the Vaad was a place that you can't come in and do what you want. I walked into him and I said, it was a meifes b'fnei atzma that he agreed to put it together. In those days, he had to put the words and tape them and move them around. And I remember writing the words, the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin coming to America. It was the Yevel from 45 years. It was Mamisha. And the reason why I did it is because I felt that the Elam doesn't know anything about it. So even if we'll go up and have a battle mashke b'am Rebbe, the Elam doesn't even know what it is. Like this, we'll give a shur and put in some sent at all the tables, so people, the whole Shabbos will be ready. When it comes to the farbrengens, they'll have the idea b'chlal. And Taka the Sikha I put is the Sikha from Tes Order Tov Shem Bei, which is the first year the Rebbe spoke in such a meridik and efen of B'ineh Chad Tachten. And it happened to be that the next year is the year. So anyway, so So Lepoel, so Memele does the Inen from Sayevel, 85 years from Rebbe coming to America and Sayevel. So it's nicht stamatog. A koponim, but the Iker is what I want to say is, sorry, there's a problem here. Okay, is there is one Agoya, very interesting Agoya. I don't know if anyone mentioned that here. In the Ayem Yem, the Zolikson gave into the Rebbe. In the Ayem Yem, in the Shashelas Hayachas, is dort not geschrieben, they wrote as Oizvim mipnei akibush Nazi at Paris, uberchim leVichy, and they're running away to Vichy. What's wrong with that? They leave Paris and they're running away to Vichy. What hat der Rebbe geschrieben? In Tov Shinun, the Rebbe is Magia to Shashelas Hayachas. And the Rebbe writes, instead of the word berchim, the Rebbe crosses out berchim, and he writes umatikim. They are moving. They're not running away. A Rebbe is not running away from anyone. The Rebbe is not berchim, ma'atikim. They are moving from Paris to Vichy. Everyone knows that they ran away from the Holocaust. Everyone knows that the Friedrich Rebbe gemacht a Sturm and sent letters, and the Rosh Rabinovich, the son from Reb David Meir Rabinovich, and he was a lawyer and he was connections. The Friedrich Rebbe writes telegrams back and forth, and the Rebbe wrote letters to this council and that council. But when it comes to Shalshelas Yachad Yem Yem, Berchim, the Rebbe crosses out Berchim, says Uma'atikim. They are moving from Paris to Vichy. And this is a nekude that everyone knows, the famous sikha from the Friedrich Rebbe about the Alter Rebbe, when he gets to the arrest from the Alten Rebbe, as the ganze arrest, the ganze Meise, given by Askamose from the Alten Rebbe. If the Alter Rebbe would not mask him, on the Meise would be no Meise. Even though everyone knows the Rishimis, it says the story, the Alter Rebbe, the first time the police came to his house, he ran away and he was hiding in the Vesakvoret, Vesachaim. And then he came back, and then there is the Alter Rebbe made the whole Stadlos, the translator from the Chkira Udrisha from his questions should do the richtige translation. The whole thing was. So we all know that, and the Alter Rebbe writes in his answers that he's asking a chesed from the Tsar and the whole thing. So what's wrong? So the Friedrich Rebbe comes and says, Pshitas, if the Alter Rebbe would not agree to the arrest, it would be no arrest. And the famous word Shmuel Mukhe said to the Alter Rebbe, after the Alter Rebbe ran away to the Beis HaChaim and he came back home, Shmuel Mukhe came into his house and he said to him, he said, you heard me, they want to take me to Petersburg. And Shmuel Mukhe said, if you are Rebbe, the bullet will not take you. So the same thing with the Gate of Chof Ches Sivan. And here we see a very important nekuda that we all have to know, that even though the Friedrich Rebbe made a status b'derech hateva, that you have to make it, all in what you have to do b'derech hateva. But lepoel, when it comes to what really happened here, we have to remember as the Nora Ine for Ma'atikim, it's nicht kein for Berchim. The Rabbeim don't run away, and as we saw in Buchash, the side of Friedrich Rebbe and side the Rebbe came out of the Holocaust b'shleimus. The Friedrich Rebbe came out of the Holocaust with his streimel, with his beard, with his forim, with his ksovim, with his mishpocha. The same thing the Rebbe came out with his books, with his ksovim that he took with him. There was no shinoi. But you could see that the Nazis, which was the greatest gzeira, the greatest shmad of Am Yisrael, they couldn't touch the Rabbeim. And even though there was, of course, Ishtadlos, but even everyone knows the story that the Rebbe had to go on a certain boat. There was a Dalgan for the Rebbe not to go. Everything that was by the Rabbeim is all L'maylam and Teva, even though it was ungetan in Teva. But be'emes, be'pnimius, it's L'maylam and Teva. Be'mele, this nekuda is very, very important. It comes to Chof Ches Sivan. And what's Chof Ches Sivan? It gives the koyach of Sivan. It gives us the koyach, and as the famous vote, the Rebbe spoke Tov Shem Tes. As everyone knows that for 3 years there was the farbrengens, Memvov, Memzayim, Memches, and even though the Rebbe gave minus and the Rebbe gave a badla mashke, but Lepoel, the Rebbe himself never spoke about it. And only in Memtes the Rebbe spoke about it. And when the Rebbe spoke about it finally in Memtes, what did he speak about? What happened to be by Shabbos Shelach. And the Rebbe gave the whole sikha from Shlach L'chol Daitcho. And the nekuda was, as Chof Ches Sivan is the koyach from Sivan. The Rebbe said that the Ashgochepotis, that we see the way the Rebbe's, you find Ashgochepotis in every Indian, as the Shluchim from Moshe Rabbeinu left Chof Ches Sivan. That's a very gesagt. That the Chof Sivan is the Chodesh from when the Eibishter gives the Torah to the Yidden, to Milamailo Lamato, and when starts the Lechole Daitcho, the Shliches Milamato Lamailo, when does it begin? It begins Dafkin Chodesh Tammuz. And the Rebbe says, not only in Indian, nor afilu begashmias. Chodesh Tammuz, the Shluchim, the Meraglim left the Ar Sinai, and they went to Eretz Yisrael, to a different begashmias, bepashtot. And the Rebbe must be the same thing is happening the Chof Ches Sivan. What is Chof Ches Sivan? As we get avek, that we're going away from Chatzikad Urel and we're going dafke to Chatzikad Tachten, where there was no Matan Torah. That says it starts. Tammuz is Melmata L'mayla, the Chol Daitim. I'm sure maybe someone spoke about it before. About Kaplan, the Nekuda is that we have to understand as Vosig Geshen Chof Ches Sivan, as the Rebbe said beferish about Chof Ches Sivan, as Chof Ches Sivan give them keach from Sivan to be able to be in Tammuz. And those words the Rebbe said, Yemel, as why the Shluchim from Yeshua succeeded, and the Shluchim from Moshe Rabbeinu didn't succeed. And the Rebbe said, because Kol's man is given Pnei Moshe, so the Shluchim could not really do the Emesel and Daitcha. So when you think about that connection, as Megedenkt, as Chof Ches Sivan, the Rebbe, the Rabbeim don't birchim, they don't run away, they are no ma'atikim. The Rabbeim, so it's alles melamaylo, it's alles mechuven. And therefore, the whole thing of Ches Sivan, what is that teaching us? As the matzav that we give him as a chaim, in this situation that we are now in 30 years after Gimmel Tammuz, we have to understand that in Ishtor Azach Berchim, the Rebbe is not under Gbolas HaTeva, and everything that's happening is alt melamaylo mechuven. The mele, why it happened? Dr. the Rebbe in the Sichim of Ches Sivan Memtes, it happened because the Montzach Ha'inyan Far Moshiach et Montzach the Inyan from Lechol Daitcha. And as the Rebbe spoke Baricha, the Shlach Lechol Daitcha, people mention it here, as Moshe Rabbeinu should have realized that something is wrong here. How did he allow this to happen? The Eibishter sagt Lechol Daitcha, but Moshe Rabbeinu said, as a do a tarkeit in Lechol Daitcha, that's worth it even if we make a mistake. That's even worth it. That says the target from the Daitcho is so strong, as worth it, a film is all staying in Midbar 40 years with all inyonim. It's all worth it, the whole Daitcho. And this the Nekuda we saw, I feel the Etzem Yomtev of Ches Sivan. The Etzem sagt that the Rebbe was a tzaddik nister, even in his man from the Rebbe's, how's it possible that the Rebbe should be a Rebbe for 40 years almost, and nobody should know the day that he came to America? The Rebbe was a tzaddik nister, even in the alle 40 years of the Nesias. He continued to be a tzaddik nister. Nobody knows the day he came to America. And only Beshgoche Protis, gedruckt, the Yiddishkeit, mitam all knows. Even though the Rebbe, everyone knows there was an ad in the paper, in the Morgen Journal, there was an ad the next day, Chof Ches Sivan, the Frierdiker Rebbe put an ad in the paper. It was a beautiful ad about the Rebbe, yet nobody knew about it. For 40 years, nobody knows. 50 years, from Tov Shin Aleph. And finally, when it came out, the first time was 2 days before the meeting the Rebbe had, the first Mimit Agur. So we see the old of the B'negei Mishpat Hasforim. So we see the old thing, Abishas Mitracht Tzarayim. What is Chof Ches Sivan? Chof Ches Sivan came to give us the koyach, to have the koyches, the inner koyches for Gimmel Tammuz. And then there is a vote that the Rebbe said, a Meirdik vote, and with that I'll conclude. It's a L'chaim. The Rebbe said, but the first Mal the Rebbe spoke about the Chof Ches Sivan beremez. What is beremez? Ad kel kach it is given begoloi. He didn't say the word Chof Ches Sivan, but the Rebbe should. We asked Meir Alik to be the one to go up with the battle mashke. So Meir Alik wasn't sure he wants to do it. First he was a bit nervous. Maybe Chof Ches Sivan will take away from Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Meir a bit. But the Iker, he was nervous as a nayzach. And he doesn't know how the Rebbe will react to this. So he had a problem for our Mishigassen. So, okay, fine. We told him, we begged him. We said, we're not going to go up. You're the only person who represents the Bochem. Meir Ali. No, he's not sure. The Rebbe started Farbrengen. So basically, Shabbos Shelach. Shabbos von Tammuz. Pasha Shelach, Shabbos Tammuz. So the Rebbe always speaks Shabbos Tammuz. Aber we negate it, basically Gimmel Tammuz. So the Rebbe starts the Wörter, basically Gimmel Tammuz, and immediately he makes a detail, the ganze Inne von den meisten Geule, nothing. Als was sie gewähnt, ist Beis Tammuz, hat durch dem mit mir gekommen, zu Chatz Tachten. Und es trage mir für meines Schutz. Dann der Rebbe sagt, auch sicher. Mehr dicke sicher wegen dem Inne von Chatz Tachten, und dem Inne von meines Schutz. At the end of that sicher, Meir Ali turn around to us and say, I'm doing it. Basically, even Meir Ali understood, as this sicher, Shans Wochen Tammuz, wegen Chatz Tachten, nicht wegen Meister der Geule, it's clearly the Rebbe speaks about Chof Ches Sivan. And then the sicher is a mehr dicke sicher. The Simon prepared it when Rabbi Zakalkovsky prepared the kavitz. They wanted the Rebbe should be magia that sicher from Shabbos Shelach. You know the story. Everyone knows that that Shabbos, Reb David Feldman was not in town. He had a wedding, so Reb Yael Khan was the one who made the sicher. And those days in involved, the Rebbe didn't magia the whole Farbrengen, only one sicher. So that same Shabbos, the Rebbe spoke about the famous sicher from Abu Shababirim and the Rabboni from Kronaitz. So Rabbi Yael was very into it. He decided that the one sicher should be not about Chof Ches Sivan, but about the Abish Babirim. And he gave it into the Rebbe. And Rabbi Yael was still under, the old way of it. Pope Bishop are going to make a new Yom Tov. So he wrote Shabbos Shelach, Shabbos Vechom, Pasha Shelach, Shabbos Vechom Tammuz. Or the Rebbe zugelegt, B'Ksabat Kodesh, Chof Ches Sivan, in the Agoy from that sicher. So Kaponim, in that sicher is a merdike sicher, and I feel in the sicher, but Masugre from the kavitz, they didn't put it in. I don't know why. But da merdike word. The Rebbe says that as yafutzu menesecho chutzu. He explains the meaning from yafutzu menesecho chutzu in an unusual way. One of the wörter dort is first that yafutzu means it has to be a fotze in such a way as there is no limit. You have to spread. You have to be mebazbez, as David the Loshen and Mayim Bosargani, mebazbez all the eitzres, even the greatest eitzres that ever been. The Rebbe says, "Mitreft Aiden should not be a Aiden Chassidus that you cannot tell him. If there is a Aiden Chassidus that you are hiding from him, that means it's not your futzel. Your futzel means that you do a futzel of everything there is, and even Azachi in Yonim that you don't even know. What's the Loshen and Mayim that the Melech doesn't show it himself? And Yonim was bad zich allein is ich begillen. Then the Rebbe goes, das ist der Futzel. In my Nesecho, Bechad Inne von Amayin, it goes to the source of everything, because Amayin is Metar Bekolshu. A Tipo is Metar Bekolshu. So the Rebbe says, the Mayin is nicht nur mit Basbe sein, the größte Mayones, but even the Odom HaMeifitz, he has to be mit Basbe, his Mayin, seine Kirches an Elomim. Then Chutza means to go all the way Chutza. If there is a Chutza that doesn't exist, it has to go everywhere. No place it cannot be Chassidus. Everywhere it's going. But then there is a merdike what the Rebbe said. Everyone, always the Rebbe spoke about Geula and Geula and Geula. As mit daf reinstell dem Aleph, Anufa Shalelam, so from Golus becomes Geula. From Geula becomes Geula. That Shabbos the Rebbe spoke about merdike word. I don't remember the Rebbe should repeat it in order to bring it. Maybe others remember. The Rebbe said that word. And the second not in that, in the Likud they didn't put it in for some reason. The Rebbe says, as the Loshen Eser Golias goes to Shechina. Eser Golias goes to Shechina. There is the Lubavitch, there is a famous Rishimi from Friedrich Rebbe, but Eser Golias goes to Lubavitch. So the Rebbe said about the Friedrich Rebbe came from Rostov to Leningrad till he came to Varsha, till Riga, till he came to America. In America, it's him the ultimate Yefutzum and Sechachutzu. Then the Rebbe says, as Tzdo Adage, dem meaning for Geila and Geula, a hechere Dage von Legen Alufe Shalelem dort. What is the hechere Dage? As he bald the ganze Ihnen von Golus, is von Gilui. So the Rebbe says, mit darf erfüllen nicht da reinstellen dem Aleph. When you say the Bala Geula, the Friedrich Rebbe, Golo, that he was Geila from walking from place to place, Golo. So the Rebbe, mit darf reinstellen, you take the Nekude, instead of comets on the Gimmel from Golo, you change the comets into Gila. As Punkt because then Golsok is ein Gilso and Golok is ein Gila. And the Rebbe says like this: at B'Shaz the Friedrich Rebbe came Golo. He went to the lowest place of the world in Chatzik Tachten. Wo sie nicht gewinnt, kind mein Vater Mayones, gar nicht gewinnt dort. Und the Jewish people in America were in the Tachlis Ashiflu they were. It's a famous story. The Rebbe once cried by Farbrengen in Tovshin Beis, Tovshin Gimmel, at the Rabbeim am Gesetzen gelernt Chassidus mit ihnen. And the Rebbe, the Schwer, is learning Aleph Beis mit Kinder. That means that what Lubavitch do in America, Messiah Shabbos, with free kids. So the Rebbe says, at the Loshen Golo, as you take the comets out of the Gimmel and you put a chirik, from Golo becomes Gila. And then the Rebbe said, Amir de Kevod, as the Rebbe, the Nasi de Reinot, Megala given in America, the Keches Asmim, noch far de Geule, noch far Mohodam Aleph Aluf Shalom, hat Shein Megala given Keches Asmim that never was before Begila. And that's a word that we all have to know, as it's nicht Stam Werte, that the reason why there are 5,000 Shluchim all over the world, and why Lubavitch became mainstream, and why the entire world realized that Lubavitch is leading the world. It's not Stam. It's not because we are more cool, we know how to do, but we know how to talk to people. It's because the from Chof Ches Sivan, it's this Gala gewon Gilo, Keches Atzmin that never were before. As the Rebbe says, the Eitzer, that the Melech doesn't show it to himself. That it's a Kemelish gewon begiloi by the Rabbeim. And the Rebbe coming to America, he was Megale, Keches Atzmin, in Azah Eifem, Meine Sechel, and the Rebbe said, when we go on Mifzoim, when a little 13-year-old bocher goes on Mifzoim, and he stops a Yid and he said, are you Jewish? Dort liegt the Keches Atzmin from Rebbe, and therefore the Yid, a 50-year-old Jew, a 70-year-old Jew, stops in the middle of Manhattan, and he takes off his sleeve and he puts on tefillin for a 13-year-old Pisher who tells him to put on tefillin. But doi do Keches Atzmin from the Rabbeim that never was before. B'meile, we have to know our Keches, and it only depends on us. The Rebbe says, B'shas a Chassid, those your futzim in a sechel, he has to do it with the mayon in him. He has to be megala his mayon. The mayon is there already. We have the Keches Atzmin. We only need to allow it to come out, and only not to be mayon master on that. The mele, we have to know the Chof Ches Sivan is such a day that gave us the keach to be megala the Keches Atzmin that there is in us. So when it comes 85 years of Ches Sivan, that is the ultimate. As everyone knows, Toshim Memtez and the Rebbe started Farbrengen, he said, as Mod Gezen, we saw that there was 3 years, more than 3 years, Sholosham Bechazoka, that there is Isvadius and Chof Ches Sivan, and the Rebbe says he gave for them good titzois, there were good results. The Rebbe should say good results about the Bochem, that's not bad. There were good results, and that gives the koyach, the Rebbe said, that's how it's going to be in the future years, ubehisofen. That means that the Keches Atzmin, but the Rebbe spoke Tovshim and Vov, the first time he spoke about Chof Ches Sivan, that the Meine Sechel, that the Rabbeim Megalak when Keches Atzmin in us goes every year starker and starker and starker, noch far Gilui Mashiach, noch far the Gilui von Atzmus in Welt, there is the Gilui already by us, the größte Giluim. In other words, the Kenzel goes sein as the Hecha from the Aluf Hashem. That's why the way I understand. Aluf Hashem is a gewisse Dage in El Kus. But do reds of the Etzem, but the Hecha from out, but this is Gala gewon, ich Chof Ches Sivan. So Mele, when we say Lechaim Chof Ches Sivan, we Farbrengen Chof Ches Sivan, and we miskashem mit Nerem, then we are Megale in us, them fire, them Eish Tomi Tuk and Berchle Sichbe, them fire for Chassidus, and the fire for Rebbe, and that will verbrennen them dollars. And Be'ez Hashem, this Chof Ches Sivan, then can sich zemet Nerem begosh from the Kol Mamish. L'chaim, l'chaim. Yasher koich, everybody.
Shkeich, Rav Yoski. Always refreshing to get that bren, that warmkeit, that eish. Big Yashkoyach. I would like to give a thank you to Reb Levi Katz and Reb Shmuley Litvin for arranging the technical things behind the scenes. I'd like to give a yashakayach to all of the people who spoke, Farbrengen and were mishtatif. David was a helfen. The schos of the Shabbos Shelach kam yochas al gerim zayin nachas zum Rebbe should be the final step in the Chana Kreva to be together with the Rebbe. I'm closing the formal part of the Farbrengen. I will allow anybody, I guess, the ma'arganim, the people, the technical people in advance, if someone wants to Farbrengen, wants to speak, wants to say some words, raise your hand. Maybe they'll open for you. I don't know exactly how it works from here, but I encourage wherever you are to continue the Farbrengen into Shabbos, into Chof Ches Sivan, and from Shabbos into the coming week into Chodesh Tammuz. So Taka Zayin HaChodesh HaGeula, the Geula B'Peil Mamish. beefen Goloi und bepastos lamata Vaad Or Vechom mit den Rebben zusammen L'chaim L'chaim.
Amen. Shekoyach. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Joske, hörst du?
I lost it.
It was mentioned before that it took so long to be in the Megala the day of Chof Ches Sivan, angeben der Farbrengen mit Buchswares, ja, Leibel Shapiro hat gesagt. It's possible that even Voltuske von der Frier wegen der Tag von Chof Ches Sivan, a Sach Frier, it's maybe it would happen like Tess Oder. Yeah, Gimmel Tammuz, the Rebbe said the Gimmel Tammuz Diike, that's all from the Friedige Rebbe. Although Yud-based Tammuz the Friedige Rebbe made it because by him Diike was able to say Chassidus and to be able to be mahanik to Chassidim. But by Yos Gimmel Tammuz Diike, but when it came to Tess Oder, the Rebbe never mentioned that. The Rebbe only spoke about the University gebringt Chassidus to Chatzikale Atachten, never mentioned that soul at all. The Pashta's the reason for that is because the Free Rebbe didn't let him. If I brent Eden in Europe, when he's going to get the fight and Zainat Solda, I'm sure the Free Rebbe wasn't a happy event by the Free Rebbe. He had to be saved. He had to go to the fear in the world and he darf sich raten werden. Aber sagen, dass Simcha machen mit dem Simcha, wir brennt in Europe, I'm pretty sure the Free Rebbe didn't let the Rebbe do anything like that. Wir haben wohl gefunden wegen Chof Ches Sivan in der ersten Jahren. Der Scheichen wollte kein sie kennt machen von dem der Simcha, was man macht von dem, von der Zolde. Maybe this is there's a certain advantage that we have from that. I'm not just a Schiske von den Jahren, maybe kann man halt feiern, dass sie darf sein, Leben, Lamim kann man das feiern, nach Simcha von der Zolde.